Okay. What's up, everybody? The Horny Goat crew here is here tonight to talk about social media. We use it regularly in our daily lives every single day. I don't know about you guys, but I use Twitter all the fucking time. Shit, we're using it right now on YouTube. But how much is too much? Are we as a society leading ourselves down a path that we can't come back from? What are the consequences to both us and the world as a whole? These are the questions that we will be discussing tonight in The Social Dilemma, a review and analysis of the Netflix special Social Dilemma. With me tonight, I have JP Baker, who is running the show on his end.
How's it going?
How you doing, JP? I've got Bobbit. How you doing, Bobbit?
Doing good.
All right. We've got Heather in the background over by JP, as normal. I'm sure Wendy's over there too.
Nope, she's sleeping.
Oh, that's surprising. And we also have the weird and oddly gifted Canadian basement. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
All right, so you guys, this is our first official show in regards to something that can be taken as quote unquote serious. Anybody that knows us knows that we are never fully serious, but let's start off with talking about how like social media is kind of taking on a life of its own. Because I know that they discussed this in the documentary itself.
Well, that's what the whole documentary is essentially about.
Yes, yeah, and it's kind of about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say like it's kind of about how, sustainability of like human life form in order to keep up with social media, and the algorithms of social media is lacking. Right. Like it's fastly outgrowing us.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to say this about AI, and the guy actually hit on that. And there's a couple of people that actually, AI does not show emotion. AI does not, they don't know what the truth is. They only know what you click on, and they feed off of that, and then they add on to it. So if you watch this program, and they have these, apparently this, the way that they did it, it's a little confusing. Because here I'm thinking it's just a documentary where they interview people and then they actually have this family who are played by actors. One of them I've seen act in a movie or two, and the son. But it revolves around the situations that happen are actually what is going on in the world today with people on social media.
Well, and it's funny that you bring that up because the biggest thing that, or at least the biggest thing that hit for me in this documentary was specifically about kids and how it's affecting kids. And when they depict this like little family, actors that are portraying this family, you can really see how social media affects the youngest child and the middle child, but the oldest child really doesn't have a cell phone. So you can see the difference on the different levels on how they perceive the world, and it just kind of, as the documentary goes on.
Right.
So, Basement and Bobbit, let's. What do you guys think about the consequences of media?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you barely, but go ahead.
Basement.
Oh shit! Sorry, guys. I was having some audio.
It's okay.
I did mention in the chat that there's something might be wrong. I think it's just me though. Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was actually talking to you and Bobbit. JP and I were kind of touching on how the documentary has this family, and how the three kids in the family.
It's full blur.
Are I don't know if JP's talking to me or Heather.
No, I was talking to Heather. I'm sorry. She was saying turn up the desktop audio. It's already up.
I think it's just me, so don't worry about the technical side.
Yeah.
As for the family thing in the movie, okay. With the documentary, yeah, they touch on how social media is impacting everybody, and I agree with you 100%. The biggest standout for me in this whole documentary was how it impacts younger kids, especially when they started to
Mhm.
revert to statistically with young girls. They tried to relate the statistics of suicide rates or self harm rates for younger
Yeah.
girls with the advent of social media, and it's not like though it might not be 100% like responsible, there's still a very real problem with younger kids. It's not just girls, but it's probably girls more than anybody else, just because of the way
Mhm.
society has kind of grown. Um,
Yeah.
between like young kids using social media, and social media is a harsh place to be in, especially as a young kid. It's different as an adult where you know a bit more and can take yourself out. Not everybody, but you should be able to. It's the whole adage of develop a hard skin, and we used to tell it to people all the time. Young kids, we used to have it told to us, but the world's changed, and that's not really what they tell to kids now. It's more like we have to create an environment for them so that they don't see how bad the world can be, but they're seeing it online. And I mean, it's in my opinion, that's where the core of this whole documentary is. That's the most important thing this whole documentary says.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and just to touch back on the numbers that you were talking about, I actually have those numbers written down. It says out of every 100,000 teen girls, the number of depression and anxiety cases increased 62% um, in older teens, and increased, let's see, by 189% for preteen girls. So it nearly tripled since 2009 when social media really became a thing. And the suicide rates are doing the same thing. They're kind of, tripling as well.
And
I
and
mean,
I
we just
mean,
have this massive thing that's just crushing our kids.
I will say, like, the way that this documentary, and like when I watched it and I fell somewhere in the middle. There's things that it says that I'm with, but
Mhm.
like any documentary I've ever watched, it tries to tell a specific story, and it tries to without really like presenting multiple sides or multiple arguments as to why something might be happening, or at least putting the onus on more than just social media and big company.
Mhm.
Because in
Mhm.
the end, I mean, if you're in a place where you're just shoving a tablet or a phone into your kid's hand to say, your friends have one, so you get one, and I'm not going to restrict or look at what you do on social media or anything like that. Some of that still falls on the family and the parents allowing them to do it.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's hard for anybody to police somebody to that extent, because when you want to do something, you're probably going to do it, a kid or not.
Mhm.
But it's also, I think, it's a responsibility of a parent or an older individual to know what those things can do, what the tools are that your kid's jumping on. If your kid lives on Twitter, you should be on Twitter. You should know what
Yeah.
Twitter brings. Therefore, you can actually know when you should step in and police your kid from going
And
overboard.
as speaking as the mother of a teenager, it's really easy to be able to do that when they're preteens or even when they're early teenagers. But once they start getting to like the older teens, like Austin, he's going to be 18 here pretty soon.
Mhm.
I can't monitor everything that he does on social media anymore. I still can with Isabella. But with Austin, it's hard to monitor everything because he's gotten too smart. He knows if I put a parental trap on there, he knows how to fucking unhook it. But just looking at my kids and how social media has changed them, it, I can see it. They have become more isolated. They are making a lot more online connections versus in-person connections. But then again, so do I. Um, the depression and the anxiety and the bullying and all that, you can just kind of, I can see it with my
Mhm.
kids, especially with Bella. Like right now, she's 100% into YouTube. I mean, her and her friends will be sitting outside, and instead of running around playing, they're on their tablets or whatever device they have, and they're watching YouTube, sitting at a table outside.
Mhm.
No,
So I
it's
mean,
not just kids. It's everybody.
Yeah.
oh,
Like
I do it myself.
most of the conversations that people would have had at like a dinner table, or you go to a restaurant and you're hanging out with friends, just you like this has pissed me off for years now. Because I mean, I feel like if I'm gonna take the time out of the day to hang out with everybody, just like everybody else is, we should respect each other's time and spend it with each other because you don't get it that often.
Right.
But there's people I know, good friends I know, that can't stop, and I think this is what the documentary is
addiction.
really trying to hit on, is the addictive nature of social media and how that can be a trap for a lot of people. When it comes to kids, I mean, when you say your son at 18, that's when you kind of have to let them. In my mind, like that's when the onus goes on you. When you're an adult to a point, because at 18 I didn't know everything that I was doing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's the addiction aspect of it all, and I think they did a pretty good job in the documentary, because we all watched The Social Dilemma. If you guys haven't seen it, you might want to check it out on Netflix. It presents some neat ideas. You might already know or have an inkling of everything they're talking about, but the way that it's packaged and presented kind of gives you an overall view of what's happening in the world from people that have worked on the big media apps that are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, like YouTube,
You know,
they
sorry,
have that. I'm sorry. With YouTube, and it costs, I don't even know how much I paid for it, that YouTube Premium. And we're going to get into it because this documentary actually turns into why tech companies are the richest, most powerful entities in the world today. I have YouTube Premium, so my ads are shut off. All ads are shut off, so no ads pop up. So I can't be. So Wendy does the same thing that Bella does. She'll sit there and watch YouTube. Like right now, she's watching these noise making videos, and she'll just scroll through them. But she's on mine, so she's not popping on an ad that pops up, which is good in a way. It's a good thing.
Right. And well, and you know, it's to me how YouTube and all of these other apps they were created to do good. Because if you think about it, YouTube was made as kind of a platform to bring out information into the world, or to deliver
entertainment,
you know, like healthy entertainment for children or for adults, you know, whatever. But somewhere along the line, the ad companies just kind of took over. I know in the movie they had said, where is it? YouTube for Kids, which is what I have on Bella's TV because I thought it was better. But there's no ad regulations on that. So like our children are being hit with the same things that we are on regular YouTube, you know, and that's causing, you know, you're hit with all these like fake news type things, and it's causing the kids to become influenced or persuaded to ads. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Bella's come up to me and said, "Mom, I need this toy because such and such had it on this show on YouTube."
But my question to you is that so much different than what's happened in the past? No. It's more accessible, yes, and it was easier to monitor what kids did, because in order for them to get that information, they had to sit down in front of a TV and watch it. It's just that one outlet that they would get it from, outside of, you know, getting it from their friends' word of mouth. But that one outlet directly from a media source, it was easier to turn it off or stop it from happening. But when there's every fucking piece of technology on the planet now can almost search the internet. So, or watch YouTube. You can watch YouTube on gaming consoles, PCs, phones, tablets, you name it. It'll have access. Even fucking the Switch has YouTube. So like, you know, that's a console made for younger kids to play. Yet they can access it on there. So you can't always police everything a child does. And the more access they have, the more they have to things like this.
I agree with you to a certain point, because I know in the documentary they actually mentioned they brought it back to the Saturday morning cartoons from when we were kids. And if you remember, we had ads and stuff for toys or whatever, but they were always more kind of like that age-appropriate ad for a kid watching Saturday morning cartoons, you know, trying to convince us that we wanted a certain toy.
They were regulated. There was an actual department that had to regulate them,
Exactly, and they're not being regulated now. So I can walk into Bella's room, and she'll be sitting there watching, I don't know, she likes to watch some gamer guy he's weird. But anyways, she likes to watch him. So I'll walk into her room and all of a sudden an ad will come on and it's a Biden or a Trump ad. And I'm like, this is obviously something that is made for children. The video itself, they have the made for kids thing on it, but yet she's being exposed to this stuff when she's only 9.
Yeah, I mean, but it's that time of year, and it doesn't matter. They're just making a quick buck. They're trying to influence.
That was just an example. Yeah, that was just an example. Like, there's what I was trying to get at is there's adult ads being shown on kids' shows.
There's adult ads on cartoons now.
But I also wonder, and I don't know because I've never checked out YouTube for kids. I don't know how, like, the recommendation tools along YouTube. If you say it's for kids, is it strictly only going to show what's for kids? Because I know when we create a like a show like this, there's an option to say is it for kids or not, and we say no, but we don't age restrict it. That's the problem. I don't know if YouTube Kids age restricts only or goes by not for kids.
It's supposed to be age restricted and not for kids. Like it's only supposed to be material that is suitable for like children under a certain age, and that's where the hole is, because has gotten into stuff on YouTube where I have walked into her room and I'm like, what the hell are you watching? Because it was something that was for, I'd say, somebody that's more along the lines of Austin's age versus somebody that's along the lines of Bella's age. Now, I was under the understanding, and this may be on me, because I might have like misread it wrong or whatever, but I was under the understanding that YouTube Kids was more for kids that are like under the age of 12.
Right.
So there's like this huge like gaping hole in there, and the problem is like there's really no way to fix it.
Yep. I mean, social media, and Rayshawn just put it in. He says, "I'm glad I met you all through social media, but I'm against it." Social media is good. So much, it depends on how it's used. Like me and Basement sit here, we talk about the internet wrestling community and how toxic it is. We sit here and we talk about the political community and how toxic it is. So my point is, with social media, period, and Twitter and Facebook are two of the worst platforms of social media for this, that you have to read both sides of the story. Don't just feed into one side. And if you watched this show, it actually did that, where this kid wasn't right, he wasn't left, he was extreme center, which there's no such thing as extreme center. Let's get that.
It's going to sway one way or the other, but I usually sway one way or the other on different ideals.
Well, but I don't. But it depends on what that idea is. So and I don't know where you sway one way or the other. That's not. I want to go into that, but I'm just saying that's what these ads do. Well, I'm going to click on this because Antifa, let's see what Antifa does. And then you get listening to it, and then it recommends videos for you, or it recommends follow this person, or hey, friend me here.
Movie. Yeah, it's a ye old fucking YouTube rabbit hole. Where you start searching one thing, and every related thing is something deeper and deeper into it. So a suspicious mind, or someone that's interested by the fact that something could be true, can find themselves into a place where they're like almost being convinced, because all of the feed information they're getting is that. But the way that the movie tells how social media platforms learn to kind of only present you with that moving forward, because they know that's what you want to see. Everything you start seeing, whether it be on YouTube or just on Chrome or Google Chrome or Twitter, you start seeing these pop-ups that are more reinforcing an idea. Whether the idea is true or not, it doesn't matter. It's just they're looking you to continue to click those links to get to those places. And I mean, the more you see of something, the more you start believing that something is real. And it's weird. The one thing that I will say is every single person that uses social media has a much different experience than everybody else. Because what I see popping up on my YouTube homepage, or even like news sites, or even the ads that show up on every fucking website I look at, are all trying to be geared towards something I've looked at before. Whether it was something I was interested in or not, it's just that you pick up on that. It's personalizing that experience, but while it's personalizing that experience, it's closing the blinds to everything else that's out there.
And they are making money. Every time you click on an ad, or every time you click on something, they're making money off of you. And this is where Gina, when she said, we are puppets.
Yeah, we're literally puppets. Like we are being bought and sold in a certain sense without even.
I do feel like that statement, it depends on the individual, because I think you can easily get sucked into it, and everybody's sucked into a certain extent, but you can also, if you understand it's happening to you, you can mentally work against it. And this is why it's so dangerous for the younger people.
Yep.
Because they don't understand it. They don't get it. And they're sucked into ideals that they don't truly believe in, but have basically been preached to them to be. It's like it draws a lot of lines to like religion for me. If a young child doesn't know anything about religion, whatever the religion is, and their parents bring them to whatever the church or mosque or whatever it is, it's basically indoctrination before free thought.
Yep.
So you believe in something before you even know what that something is, because you were taught to believe in it.
Yeah, and you know, in the film they use the example of because this happens everywhere. I mean, the algorithms figure to your likings on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Google, everything. And they use the example of typing climate change into Google, and everybody is going to get a different response. When you type in climate change, you're going to get climate change is destroying the environment, or climate change is a hoax, or whatever. And it's all based upon your location and your likes and dislikes, and that algorithm is able to steer you without you even knowing that it's happening.
Right.
It all, like, yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, the world is based on brainwashing for the most part. Everything you'll ever learn or take in is from a specific point of view. It does, however, as an adult, it falls on you to find the opposite point of view, and not just be, in my opinion, it falls on you the information is out there. You just have to search for it. So you're looking up a topic as to why people think something very strongly about one thing, look up the opposite. Try to culture yourself, get a lot of different point of views before you fall into a place where you only believe one thing.
That's the problem these days, though, because everybody is so heavily swayed one way or the other. They're not willing to look at the other side. I know. What did you guys think about when they brought up that whole thing about Pizzagate, the documentary?
That's like an extreme version of someone. I mean, Pizzagate was something that like caught wind because people are so willing to distrust anything. People are so willing to distrust super rich. They're so willing to distrust politicians. They're so willing to distrust government. So anything that comes out that has to do with any of that and the nefarious ongoings of them as a whole or unity, people jump on. This is how conspiracy theories really get going. And with social media, it's basically an elixir to help conspiracy theories spread.
Yep.
Well, yeah. I mean, we had it's how did they put it in the documentary? It's like weaponizing social media, because they also use the example of what happened in Myanmar, where what was it, on Facebook, I think it was, and all of those political activists started rioting and everything, and they were forming up a group on Facebook, and they ended up like being responsible for so many deaths or whatever. You see it happening on Twitter right now, currently, in the current political climate that's going on. People are using their social medias in order to steer people towards their own beliefs, which is like creating a huge polarization, especially in my opinion, in politics.
The most dangerous thing Go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well, okay. So what Gina just said, the right and the left, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, do this. They do this all the time. That's why why our country is so divided, because, well, I want to see what Joe Biden has to say, and then for some reason they go down a rabbit hole. That rabbit hole gets got down, and now everybody's so far to the left believing what is being said that if they say 2 plus 2 is not 4, they believe it for some ungodly fucking reason. And that's just an example. The same with the right. It's the same thing with the right.
I think it's not just in politics. I mean, politics is probably like the biggest one right now, but it's in everything. Like you have an extreme right and extreme left in everything.
Yes.
Climate change, fucking there's even an extreme right and left when it comes to like discussing pedophiles and what should be done with them. It's just everybody has this like insane belief that they're automatically right and everybody else is wrong. Jeff brought up a good thing here in the chat. He said there's so many stories by people that don't have a clue what they are saying.
And that's exactly what my point was.
People are buying it.
They buy into the bullshit. They buy into the bullshit.
Yeah.
It's because okay, the worst thing you could say to anybody is it's meaningless, it has no point or anything like that. People yearn for purpose in everything that they do, and they want to have people cheer them or clap them on the back for when they're right about something. The problem is almost 90% of what people fucking read and see is just not right. There is no 100% truth in most things that you hear or read or see. There's always going to be part of that can be misconstrued or changed to a different side. Like, just the best thing to do is try to not take everything 100% at face value. Unfortunately, that's where the world has gone. And like you said, Gina, it's not just politics. It's in gaming, movies, TV shows. I've seen a huge influx of people either rating something 10 or 1. There's no in between. It's either really shit or real good. And in what world is every movie you fucking watch a 10 or a 1?
Exactly. And in regards to that, I mean, I know earlier we were talking about the effects that it can have on kids and stuff, but like, have you guys ever put your opinion on Twitter? I know this happens to me a lot. I'll put my opinion on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and those trolls come in and you just get attacked. Yes. And some people can handle that attack, like that constant attack. But a lot of people, it increases the isolation, it increases depression, it makes you not want to freaking be on social media, but yet, like with all of you guys, I use it to communicate with you guys. It creates a huge problem.
Well, I mean, I don't know, it might have been
and
Jeff
it's like,
earlier
how do
that said it too, with social media, about anonymity. And the thing is, people can be vile. They can be hateful. They can say the worst fucking things in the world. They can just dislike. They don't even have to dislike what you're saying, but they'll come at you for some reason. It's because there is no accountability. I'm not saying there needs to be accountability online, but either people have to realize that that's what it's going to be, or if you want to go with the thing is, the more you involve rules and regulations, the worst things you usually get if they don't 100% need rules and regulations. Because you involve a governing body, and then you have something that can be manipulated.
Well, that's just the thing with this whole thing, coming back to the climate change and all of this other stuff that's out there, all the information that's out there. They said in this documentary that information, whether it's true or false, it does not matter. It reaches people 6 times faster than it reaches normal media sources. And with that kind of compatibility and that much competitiveness between social media and regular media sources like the news, newspapers, news websites, and all of that, there needs to be some sort of regulatory nature in that so that the right information gets out there before the wrong information gets out there.
Well, when an accredited news source is spreading information that's knee-jerk and clickbaity just to get a reaction that results in criminal activity, there needs to be something. It is a problem now because there are people that have lost their lives or been injured because of the riling up of the crowd by a news source that really doesn't, that can walk away from creating fervor and creating they basically create mob mentality, and then they walk away when that mob does something terrible, and that's a problem in my mind. And I think that's what this documentary was saying, where especially when they were talking about, you can create the social media, especially with the spreading of fake news or whatever it might be, fake news or misinformation. It spreads that much faster because it's clickbait, it's a hot topic, it's what people want to see. Reality is usually far less intriguing or interesting. People want to see and want to be outraged, or they want to feel the highs and lows of whatever the emotion is. You either want to be really angry or really happy or really sad. Yeah. And very few people just want to stay kind of unhappy about something. So the news markets it that way, and social media presents it that way because, hey, it's 10 or 1. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly. And with all of that... Sorry, Gina, but real quick, with all of that, it just makes it so much harder to sit there and tell people, listen, when it comes down to stuff about the election going on, about climate change, about pollution, about poverty level, about the economic status, don't sit there and just read one news article. Mm-hmm. Go to several different websites. Do the research. Mm-hmm. This is all stuff that is out there that you can find very easily.
Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. Nobody wants to take the time to do the research on, like Basement said, they just automatically want to be angry or they want to be happy. It's this massive manipulation of the mind, and people are allowing it to happen. They're allowing themselves to be manipulated by not doing the research.
Exactly. And it's just proving that with this, society is just going to get more and more lazy, and they're just going to believe the one news article that's brought out to them, presented to them as this is the truth. What it's not.
It's like today. That's most media. It's not just social
media. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sorry?
No, just go ahead.
Oh, okay. Like, they used the example in the documentary. They used utopia versus dystopia.
Yes.
And like, you have utopia where everything is perfect and everything's going great. That's their 10. Then all of a sudden there's a dystopia where like it's like this imagined state.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's great suffering and great injustice happening, and you need to do something. And that's when you start getting in your ones, like, oh, this is horrible, this sucked, blah blah blah. And that applies to everything.
And
really everything. I mean, politics, movies, anything. I'm sorry, Basement?
You see the role social media has to play in that. I'm not saying it's 100% social media, but you do see how long have anybody out there watched YouTube, and how long have you seen it slowly devolve into people clickbaiting people to watch something? It might not be entirely about what the title is or what the thumbnail is, but they're trying to get you in there so that they can talk to you. There's that hook that media uses, and it's usually even reading a newspaper or going on a news site. Kamala Harris says the most outrageous thing ever. You go in there, it's literally a 5-page document that tells you tons of information. Very little of it is about that tagline. So most people, and they know, most people, it is known that most people do not read the entire 5-page document. They will take a tagline and they will run with it, and they will form opinions based on it. It's like, Donald Trump won't denounce white supremacists. They run with it. They go crazy with it, and that's that. I don't want to get into the politics side of it, but it's just an example.
It is, and it's a very good example because it's a very good example because it's the most prevalent right now on all of our fucking timelines. And really, I'm about to mute the word politics.
Oh my god, I know. Like, I can't wait until this election's over. But I think the documentary, if my notes are correct, it said something like an estimated 2 billion people have their thoughts influenced by social media. Like,
I'm going to
if
say an
you look at-
estimated every single person that uses the internet in any way
exactly.
or media in any way possible. I'm going to say 90% of the world's population is 100% influenced by media, whether it's social media, other versions. They're all kind of the same bunch.
Yeah, but I mean, they started talking about that it needs to be fixed. And my question is, can it be fixed? I go back to that initial question that I threw out, in the intro. Are we far into the rabbit hole to retreat?
No.
I
is
don't
my
think
answer.
so. No, there's still, because you have people like us. We grew up in the infancy of social media.
Mm-hmm.
So you have people like us that still, yes, we are part of that group that will sometimes go and follow that clickbait and give that advertiser their 3.3 cents.
Mm-hmm.
But right. But in the end, we are also the people that know how to turn it off at a certain time and step away from it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the end of it is you are actively using that platform. You always have the option to stop using it. And I know in the documentary they compared they said, oh, the only two things in the world that call them users are either people that like
Or drugs
social media
or
apps or
internet.
drug addicts. But
it was technology or drugs. Yeah.
That being said, I don't think that's a fair comparison, because technology is, in my opinion, nowhere near the same levels of destructive as the most addictive hardcore drugs.
But you're
It
looking at it
depends.
from your point of view. What it is this younger generation that's coming up behind Bobbit is not as well equipped.
So if the younger generation coming up behind Bobbit either use heroin or use social media, what would you prefer?
The perfect example of this, Basement, was the girl in the family. She broke the bond. In order to
There's videos out there. There's videos out there of teenagers literally, physically fighting their parents for their phones.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
not only that,
is there no onus? Does nothing go on the family to say?
Yes,
like,
it does go on the family. It does.
Absolutely.
There is onus on the family. Because there does have to be time limits to how long they can use it and what they can use it for and stuff like that.
Like the weakest part of this whole documentary was the dramatization. In my honest opinion, I thought it felt campy. It felt out of place. I know they were trying to prove a point with it, but her going up and breaking the canister and everything, the family just being like, well, she's being her again. She broke the canister and broke the guy's phone.
Yes.
It would have gotten her ass kicked.
Like, what kind of family is this?
But
no, that's not. I would say in the part that the family just sat there and went, well, oh, God, just did that? Yes, that part is not believable at all.
They all left the dinner table and left dinner on the table. What the fuck? What are these people?
But the part where she is breaking the canister open to get at the phone, that shit actually does happen.
I can see that happen, but
that happen with Austin.
But to have it followed with no consequence. But to have it followed with no consequence is in my mind a bit much. This is where they overstep what they're trying to preach, at least for me in this document.
Yes.
Yeah. My point
it was a Lifetime movie in a
documentary.
The one thing that I would like to know is, how did that girl get the safety glasses?
Right.
One thing I would like to know is, what kind of family dynamic was it? They had every single person was from a different culture and race.
Right? No, but what I was trying to say about the little girl, it wasn't even that she broke the glass. What I was trying to get at was later on when they showed her up in her room, and you seen all the comments that she was getting on her social media, and
just that one single comment.
Crying. Yeah, she was crying, and then she was trying so hard to make herself look like beautiful. And they even, what did they refer to it in the documentary? Snapchat dysmorphia.
Yes.
Where kids are actually begging their parents to have plastic surgery done in order to make their face look like the Snapchat filters.
Okay, so
they think that's the definition of perfect. When I was a teenager, the definition of perfect was like skinny, like Kate Moss. You know?
When we grew up in an age where if somebody was going to make fun of you, just like Cobra Kai says, they'd have to
do it to your fucking face.
They'd have to do it in real life. Now that nobody has to worry about the consequences of doing it online, people are going to be hateful and shit like that. With young kids especially, that's the bad part. And I think what they did perfectly was they showed a bunch of positive comments before they showed the negative one. And people, myself included, and everyone probably is the same, we love the positive comments, but then you get that one negative one to throw your whole fucking mood off, fill your whole fucking day.
When I get the negative comments, it pisses me off, but I don't go to the extremes of some of these teenagers.
Yeah, but that's not anymore. I think teenagers will almost go to a bit more.
But I mean, it's not just teenagers either, because I know, you guys know what I got. I'm not even going to go into that. Like, if somebody makes a bad comment particularly about my looks or anything like that, because I do have extremely, very, very bad self-esteem.
You're not the only one.
So that gets, but I mean, it gets to me. Like,
it does.
I don't want it to. I don't want it to, but it does. So social media definitely, it's not just kids. There's adults. I mean, I know Bobbitt's in the chat going off about how he's been targeted for some of the things that he said with his opinion.
Say something,
and it happens. It happens to everybody.
All I was going to say is I joined social media back in 2009, 2008. And, my parents didn't want me to do it, but I did it behind their back because we found a proxy at the school that led us on to Facebook. So that's how I joined up. Mm-hmm. And, I wish I never would have signed up because I have been bullied for years about my looks, and all I cared about was followers, trying to be famous, trying to make something of myself. And there was, what got me to stop using social media a lot was the whole Amanda Todd thing and that girl who got killed right down the road from me because of a boy she met on Kick, which is a social media app.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have seen the negative of social media, and if it wasn't for you guys, this documentary would have made me delete my every account that I had.
I don't think you need to delete social media because, like I said, social media is good. The problem with social media is there are those the T word, the trolls out there that all they do is sit there and wait for somebody to comment. I comment on shit, but then I'm just me. Somebody comments on something, I'm like, really? That makes no fucking sense. Why would somebody do that?
But the difference between you and the just absolutely hateful trolls, JP, is you might comment on something just to get something going, but you never purposely go out there to make somebody feel like they're nothing.
No, and that's never my first. I'm one that likes to debate. And I love debating. I don't know why. I never wanted to become a politician, but I like debating and talking about issues. That's why I did wrestling shows for so long, and I'm very, very opinionated about fucking wrestling. I always have been.
The good thing with being someone that loves to debate is once you do get the chance to with at least some other people that might have different opinions, you at least get it's good for everyone. Because it might open my mind to something, it might open your mind to something. There's debate, and then there's just angry yelling at each other, which gives nothing. It's like, I'm not going to listen. This is my point. Either accept it or don't, and you're never going to get someone to accept it.
And that's what I see a lot of on Twitter, especially.
You know what? I feel... I'm going to say this, but I know it's not necessarily true, because there are certain people that are younger than us, the generations below us that know how to have a healthy debate. Like Austin, he knows how to have a healthy debate.
Mm-hmm.
Feel almost like as the majority whole, our generation is the last one. Because I don't know about you guys, but we did debating in high school. When I was in high school, They don't do that anymore.
No, they don't.
We're not teaching these kids how to have a healthy outlet.
But you know why? Because
for
I
their
bet you any
opinion.
money they tried to do it, and the parents were like, "You're teaching me, my kid, what?" I'm like, and you know, it's going to be about some sort of like world power talk, because that's what our debates were always about, politics and world power
Yep.
and stuff like that. So like they'll go home and they'll be like, "Well, I learned this today in school," and it's going to be like, "You learned what?" And then you shut down. Like, I mean, the problem is the parents close-minded, therefore their kids will be close-minded because they're not willing to have a conversation with more than just their own mind.
And honestly, I'm sorry, but if you are a parent out there that is like that, where you are so head set in your way of thinking that you cannot allow your child to experience all of the different views and form their own opinion, then you should be fucking slapped. Because every child deserves the chance to form their own opinions, whether they are 6 years old and they're forming an opinion about a cartoon show, or they're 18 years old forming an opinion on an election where they're going to vote for the first time. It doesn't matter.
Yep, and that's the thing. If Wendy becomes a Democrat, she's out of the house, though. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God, JP.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. She can do whatever. She can vote for whoever she wants, but if she lives under my house, she's voting Republican every time.
Hey, but as long as
Oh my
she,
God, don't
like,
even get him started.
I'm
as
just
long as she
kidding.
can come
I'm
to-
kidding.
as long
I'm
as she
kidding.
can come to the
I'm
plate-
joking. I am actually just joking. If
As long as she
Wendy,
can come to the plate with,
Wendy
like,
can do what she wants. I want her to make her own
Wait.
decisions.
Wait, Basement, what were you saying?
Go ahead.
Well, as long as she can come to the plate and actually talk her side of her point of view in a logical manner, hey, believe whatever the fuck you want. That's how I feel.
No, and I love that. Like I tried talking to my cousin, but then he starts drinking and it just turns into a shit show.
But you know, the positive, there is a lot of positive aspects to social media, because like I use Facebook to communicate with my family that are over 1,500 miles away. I don't get to see.
You know what
Or without
Facebook
social
actually?
media, we
You know
all wouldn't be sitting
sorry.
here right now together.
You know what Facebook actually started as, right?
Yeah, wasn't it like it was
Okay, so
created to, like,
Mark
bring
Zuckerberg,
along-
Mark Zuckerberg went to Harvard, and he created this app that to have a study group essentially, and Social Network. If you've ever seen that movie, that's the story of how Facebook got started. So it talks. That's how Facebook
Okay.
was. Go look it up. Google it, motherfucker. But it talks about that's what that was. That was like the first real big social media, and they just turned it. Hey, we can do a lot with this. We can friend request, and now Facebook is
This huge-
it's become the ad guru for the fucking political race. In fact, they're saying it influenced the last election,
Yep.
which it probably did, but I don't think either candidate did anything. And I'm going to say this right now, I don't think either candidate did anything to influence said fucking race. And if anybody
No, it
believes
just
that,
Like when
Stop.
you listen to a group preaching about something, eventually you either deny it or you go with it. The problem is, and I've experienced this in my own life because I talk to you guys, right? I have a bunch of American friends. Everyone on this call is American except for me. So I see you guys' point of view. I talk to you guys about politics. I can see it from your perspective, or I try to. And then I talk to like my other friends in the real world that are
I'm real,
I love-
motherfucker.
a lot more leaning towards what Canada preaches, which is super liberalism, right?
Mhm.
And I see the problems in it, but it came to a point. It's not so much there anymore, but it did come to a point where I felt like I couldn't voice my opinions to them because it was met with like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? What are you saying? Or why is this?" And it's like, I don't want to fight a group of people.
No.
I just want to say an opinion. It's not hateful or anything. It might just be against what you're thinking. But
Yep.
it made me like it was no longer. I'm going to go on WhatsApp and just message somebody. It was like, let me think about every single fucking word I put in
Yes.
this so they can digest it properly. And it's walking on eggshells. And I hate doing that with anybody because if I know you and you know me, I shouldn't have to do it.
So I have a
Exactly.
question, and it's not really going off on a tangent. It is kind of staying on, and it has to do with social media because healthcare is one of the issues that always gets brought up in social media. In fact, it happened today. Gina, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep, was there for that whole fucking crap.
When people say health care, I have never gone to a doctor and walked in there and they asked me, well, how are you going to pay for this? Well, thankfully, I have insurance. But I have gone in there and said, I don't have insurance. He said, well, who do we bill it to? They're not going to treat you. And if any you go into any clinic or any doctor or hospital and they don't treat you, they're ethically wrong, number one, and they're probably going to lose their fucking license for not treating you, because you can't go into a doctor's office if you are sick and they deny you care. You cannot be denied in the United States of America. You cannot be denied care if you do not have health insurance. Period. Bottom line. That being said, healthcare and health insurance, the only way that they're connected is one, that the health insurance pays for the healthcare. That's the only way they're connected. Healthcare, you can go to a doctor and say, I need you to take the sliver out. Okay, it's going to cost $75. For me personally, and I'm going to say this right now because I have the platform, and then I'll stop talking about it. I would rather go to the doctor if I get sick, let's say I contract COVID, God forbid. And I didn't have insurance, and I went to the doctor. I would rather go to the doctor, get taken care of, and then deal with the consequences of having to fucking pay the bill in the first place. Don't feed me that line of bullshit that, well, we can't afford it. Well, what? Nobody can afford anything anyway, so what's your fucking point? The argument of, well, I can't afford it makes no fucking sense to me.
Well, I don't want to go too far into this because it's not really touched upon with the actual topic of the social dilemma.
No.
It is somewhat linked, but I will say, when it comes to it all depends on the person. It all depends on the person's and where they are financially, mentally, everything like that. Mm-hmm. And you can only really talk from your point of view. And I get where you're coming from, saying, if I have to pay for something, I'll find a way to do it. Some people will reject going to get treated because they know what the price is going to be. Because
my parents do that. They both work full time and they still can't fucking afford their shit, so they don't go.
I'd rather roll the dice on hoping that it's not going to fucking kill me and deal with it. I'll look up online and get scared out of my fucking brain because single problem you have. I have a slight cough. You've got cancer all over the body. It's spread everywhere. But we talked about this last night, JP. So I don't want to get too much into it. But healthcare, I have a differing opinion than JP. It doesn't mean that I can't talk to him about it in an open forum. I don't want to get too much into it. Maybe after we've completed talking about the social dilemma, we can talk about it a bit more. But you know, because we discussed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as with the social, do you guys have any any things that you want to add in before I ask this final kind of question that I have?
I got a bunch of shit that I want to talk about.
Well, I'll say, and I've probably said it about 10 times, social media isn't bad if used properly.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, because I wouldn't.
Not bad if used properly.
Yeah, none of us would be sitting here right now holding this conversation without social media, because every single one of us met on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thankful for social media for that. There are a lot of really good aspects of social media. That's why they need to figure out a way to kind of reel in these algorithms, and but I don't know if you're going to be able to do that with the way people think these days, because people are so far right or so far left. There is no middle ground. Well, that's what I was getting at earlier when I said, do you guys think that this is something that can be fixed, because
It can
is this
be.
a problem with algorithms, or is this a problem with
I said this to
people
Heather
and the way that
last
we
night. I
think?
said this to Heather last night. Get rid of them. Get rid of the algorithms.
They won't.
They won't, but
they won't.
that is how the only way, and I think that was the epitome of what the show was. What is the problem? It is the algorithms, because the algorithms are the ones that are saying, well, this guy likes this, so we're just going to do this. We're going to keep doing this. And if you get shut off from that, we'll try something else. And the algorithms, if you get rid of the algorithms and just people on social media talking back and forth, you're good. They add the algorithms. These tech companies add those algorithms in. They don't just create themselves.
Well,
Like some people seem to think these algorithms create themselves. They don't.
Right, like they're just building themselves.
What they do is they sell, like tech companies will sell an algorithm to Twitter or Facebook saying it's going to do this and this is how it's going to drive revenue.
Mhm.
Everything else be damned because it's driving revenue. That being said, like what I wanted to touch on, and we spoke about at the beginning, the most important thing is for them to control this type of exposure for younger people.
Right.
Adults, I personally don't think that company having algorithms or showing you things that you've searched for or building a personalized experience for you should be a problem, because you should be able to know better. You should be able to know and understand that it's
Form
doing
your
this.
own opinion, right?
And I
Form
do.
your own opinion, and that's the one thing that this documentary did not touch on.
Yep.
They did not put any onus on the person that's using the software.
Yep.
They basically said everybody's going to be manipulated constantly by
Yeah, we're
everything.
just all lambs.
Yeah, and I mean, there's proof in that pudding, because a lot of people are like that, but that's on them in the end. The amount of people that I've talked to, and I'm just gonna call it the Breonna Taylor case, because I was talking to my friends about it. The problem is, and this is when I really saw that, like, whatever you searched is all you're gonna see,
Mhm.
or whatever you hear is all you're gonna form your opinions on, whether it's through WhatsApp friends talking about it or any other thing. There is no yearning by the people that I've known to look into seeing, like, this seems kind of fishy, or doesn't make 100% sense. I find it weird if this was supposed to happen. And then there's a bunch of other information that comes out that says, you know, this is the police report, this is what they were saying, and that might change some people's opinions. But if it's so after the fact that they've already said a bunch of statements in support of a certain way, then they don't really come back. So I mean, it's just like, take your time, learn, form an opinion. It might not be right. You might be forming an opinion on the information you get all the time, but you know, give yourself a chance to see both sides before you condemn everyone you see.
But that's the problem. People have forgotten the fact that an opinion is not supposed to be right or wrong. It's just the way that someone views things. It's their personal ideal of what is going on. And people
Go ahead.
forgot that.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, no. I was just going to say, do you know what my favorite response, and I laugh at this every time somebody says, well, that's my opinion, and do you know what my favorite response to that? I don't respond to that. I think it's a fucking bullshit response. Well, it's a bad take. How can it be a bad take if it's my opinion? It's just an opinion, man. And a bad opinion is not.
I believe your opinion is a bad take.
Well, Jesus Christ.
Just leave the conversation.
Well, no, I don't give bad opinions, because my opinions are right. But I'm just kidding.
This motherfucker over here.
What I'm saying is, it's just people, and that's how bullying starts. Well, that's a bad take. Well, how is it a bad take? Because you're just dumb, and then it becomes you're a whatever, and then that one person's like, well, I'm blocking you. Well, good, because you're a pussy, and it just gets stupid. That's Twitter wrestling. That's internet wrestling community right there. That is exactly what the IWC is.
And I think generalizing just the wrestling community as a whole is slightly accurate, but yet not, because there is a lot of people out there that I know on Twitter, that I met on Twitter, that watch wrestling, and they're not like that. Like, they
I'm sure
respect
there
other
is.
people's opinions and stuff, but as the problem is, as a collective whole, it's toxic as fuck.
It is. Because somebody
And-
that person is following sees something on somebody's timeline and they jump in there, or I've done it. They jump in there and then you tell them facts and they're like, well, that's just stupid. You're wrong. No, I'm not.
The fact of the matter is, you could literally go on Twitter and you can make the comment like, "Oh my God, Bert and Ernie are the greatest puppet characters ever," and somebody's gonna come on and they're gonna be like, "No, you're wrong. You're wrong, and this is why you're wrong." And there's gonna be a debate that starts over that. Anything that you put on Twitter, whether it's wrestling or fucking cartoons, politics, you name it.
Yep.
And it's not just Twitter; it's Facebook.
Facebook and Twitter are the
Snapchat,
two worst.
Yeah.
This is one of the main reasons I stopped watching wrestling, and it's the problem is the toxic fan base and the amount of like just creeps that are just infatuated with people.
Yeah,
But it's
we
also
talked-
like what killed me. That could exist on Twitter. That's fine. The problem is wrestling forms itself now partially around social media and Twitter,
You know what?
Yep.
and that's where I'm like, I can't stand this.
Okay, the perfect example of this, of the toxicity that exists within social media itself, and not just this is pertaining particularly to the wrestling community, but it happens all over the place with celebrities, whatever. Look at what happened to Sonya Deville.
We talked about that last night.
Yeah, and look what's gonna happen to Sasha
Exactly.
Banks, because the thing
Yeah.
is, they don't want to condemn their fan base
Nope.
because that's gonna be a bad look on them. But at the same time, a lot of their fan base is really infatuated weirdos that are in love with them.
Well, and you know, the problem is, I know, especially with a lot of the wrestlers, they have their accounts set to where you may be able to message them, but they won't actually see the message unless they go in and like look through their filtered messages. And that's what happened in Sonya Deville's case. She didn't see anything from
Mhm.
that guy, so she had no idea that there was actually a threat.
Yeah, but there's thousands of people like him. I'm
Well,
not saying they're willing to do what he did, but they're just up that alley where they don't care about wrestling.
Yeah.
We talked about it last night. It's the fan, the movie, but the fan there's a sexual nature to it that
It's creepy. It's creepy.
Mhm. They made a Hollywood movie about God. Where's Chuck when you need him?
they go
I
the
can't
fan.
remember.
It's called The Fan, Gina. Yes.
Yeah, there was The Fan, but there was another one too.
No. It had
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro in it.
Oh, this is a newer one.
Oh, there probably was.
They probably
Yeah,
did
it was a newer one, but
soft
it was like
remake.
called. I think it was called. I don't think it was about like celebrities or anything like that. I think it was called Obsession or something like that, where they had met on social media and the guy actually started stalking her and everything and became obsessed with her without her even knowing.
Well, sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
That's a single white female.
Good
Cool.
God.
Aaron in the chat says a little off topic here, which it's not off topic because this is exactly what we're talking about, because Instagram is one of the social media. I honestly never understood the purpose of Instagram. Like, why do you need an app for posting photos when you can already do that with Facebook and Twitter? The thing about it, isn't Instagram, is that all it is as photos? You can do videos with that, right?
Oh, you can do live videos.
Yeah.
You can do all kinds of different stuff on Instagram.
But
It's not just-
Instagram is owned by Facebook. Facebook owns Instagram. Go watch the
think it
movie
was just-
Internship.
I think it was just Instagram is one of those Instagram is one of
Platforms.
those platforms that was created more for the younger generation, kind of like TikTok before all of us old people invaded it during quarantine time. That
Y'all
was
are,
more
y'all are
mainly
some
children.
y'all
I
are
think-
weird people on that TikTok. I tell you
Okay.
what.
Okay, TikTok is fucking amazing. Don't you dare. And you know
It's
what?
like any other
The
social
thing
media
is-
platform, it has its good uses and its bad.
Mm-hmm.
But what was I going to say with Instagram? Okay, what I think, and also the movie touched on this, the documentary touched on this as well. Social media preys on the bad part of mankind, the narcissistic nature of people, the seeking validation from people. And Instagram is that. Like, these Instagram models live to be worshipped for the most part. And like this false worship of someone that's the same as you, takes a shit, eats a breakfast, does the fucking jacks off in the corner and cries. It's all this. They're all the same as you and me, but like they become idols, and it's idolizing what.
Yep.
Exactly.
The fakeness of a person, the identity that they want you to buy. That's what it is.
Yeah, the places that they're going based on the money that you're donating to them. Because a lot of those Instagram models are world travelers.
Well,
you see them traveling to all over the place.
I saw a video of this one. I don't know. I know it's a video, but all I know is I saw the video. But I looked at the comments, and this is like a regular thing for this woman. She runs around like a dog on a leash, and she gets treated like a dog, and she makes $10,000 a month doing so.
Good God.
So I mean, when you put money promoting bad behavior, and the platform is social media, that's where a problem exists.
You know,
and it's not regulated at all.
Well, and I will say this: okay, just like Twitter or Facebook, there's good and bad to Instagram. I don't know. I really can't see the good in Instagram, to be honest, because I'm kind of with Aaron. It's kind of useless unless you're like an Instagram model or something. But like, if you look at like TikTok, for instance, like Heather and I, we got on TikTok. I love TikTok. Like I laugh endlessly for hours on there.
And that's how a lot fucking of people weird use it. It's an TikTok.
App that's it's just for people that like to laugh, have a good time, stuff like that. Look at the dark side of TikTok that came out just recently, where there were actually pedophiles that were using TikTok in order to target these younger kids, because like I said, before the quarantine, it was majority younger kids on that app. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but some of the younger girls on that app, if my daughter tried to leave the house dressed like that or tried to dance like that or whatever, literally smack the living shit out of her, because they look like Barbie dolls dancing like whores dressed like hookers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, this honestly, this behavior existed, and this is like, okay, I'm going to say it for the whole of the documentary. All of this behavior existed before social media. Social media became a platform to spread it a bit more. It became a platform to normalize, not normalize, but publicize it and gain a bigger audience. Like the kid beauty pageants and things like that, they existed before social media. Sexualizing young girls existed before social media. It just becomes more available because of social
now
media.
with this whole like TikTok and all that stuff, as a mother, it absolutely terrifies me, because it's one thing to put your child in a beauty pageant or whatever, like you kind of know the risks doing that. And now we know the risks of having our children on social media. I understand that. But in the same sense, you never know who is lurking the other end of that computer screen or that cell phone. And the fact that pedophiles and stuff are using these platforms like TikTok in order to target these kids, and these kids they're dumb kids, I mean, no offense to any kids out there that may be listening, but you guys aren't exactly, you don't think with your fucking heads most of the time. And half of the time they have their locations turned on. Well, none of us did. But, I mean, half the time they have their locations turned on their phone. So it's so fucking easy for these people to find these kids.
What the other thing I wanted to touch on, too, that this documentary doesn't really point out is the fact that a lot of these social media platforms, when a problem presents itself, it might last for a while, but eventually something happens where they are forced to regulate. Look at YouTube, for instance. YouTube has gone through several different the dark ages of YouTube, or YouTube is dead now, because YouTube had to pull a bunch of ad revenue because of them not regulating. And it impacted everybody from the people that were doing terrible things to the majority that weren't. and it's unfortunate, but that's the case. And Twitter is dealing with that right now. The problem with Twitter is. How many people have I seen on Twitter saying, I'm taking a break from this platform? I'm not going to be able to go on this platform. I'm reining myself back from Twitter because Twitter is more toxic than it's good. And that's a problem from a company standpoint. If you're having people leaving that platform because the platform is causing them mental stress, they have to rectify that. Whether that comes through regulations or not, eventually it will. Just like it did with YouTube, just like it did with everything media-wise beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And to think, none of this really would have happened if MySpace, as Rayshawn put it in the chat, wasn't as popular.
I fucking loved MySpace.
You know what? MySpace fell apart because it didn't do what the other media companies have done.
Facebook buried it.
Well, it didn't
the ability of what to do on there.
Exactly. They didn't keep up with what everything else was allowing people to do, but also didn't keep up with the algorithm that creates that addictive nature. A bunch of media platforms before Google Plus, things like that they've tried to do have failed just because they have to have a casino aspect to social media. They have to see, and how many, I know I'm not like it that much, but you guys are fucking crazy, and I know you're crazy because we played Batman, and anytime there was a little exclamation mark in the top right, just like a little 1 or 2 in the top right, you're like, I gotta clear it. I can't see that. That means I
just did that with God of War. Like I can't stand it. Yeah, and that's exactly how I am with my phone. If I see I have a notification on my Twitter, I log in or I click on the Twitter and I get rid of the notification, or Facebook. I do it with all of them. Even maybe Pinterest.
And that was a big talking point. That was a huge talking point in this documentary. They're making it so that you can't leave it. Hey, we want you to stick around in the chat for Twitter. How many times have you been in the chat where you message something, and even in our chat in the Horny Goat, you message something and then you see the image of Heather. Oh, Heather's responding. It's like, okay, I'll stick around for a little bit longer to see what Heather has to say, or that kind of thing. It's like they have purposely put the fact that someone's trying to respond to you to keep you on that platform longer.
And I have had that happen to me on Facebook Messenger when there's no response coming. Like, you'll sit there and you'll wait for 5 minutes and no response ever came, but yet the dots are going, like they're waiting.
And the one thing that's fucked up, I know some media platforms put it's like a read receipt, but it's in the actual app. Therefore, you're like, okay, well, I know this person saw this. Why aren't they responding? And then you start to get in your own fucking mind, especially if it's like if you just hooked up with someone and you're messaging them, and it's like, okay, if they saw it, I'm waiting, and then you go even more crazy. It's not only that; it's just like the tension it creates, even with friends and stuff. It's like, oh, my friend read this. We're supposed to do something later, but he hasn't responded, and it's close to like. We're an hour away from when we're supposed to do something. It's like, well, why didn't you fucking tell me this earlier? It creates that tension on that level.
Yeah, I use read receipts on my email for work, and I deal with taking care of soldiers and families, and I email commanders, people in charge of their units. And when they don't respond, I'll sit here and I'm like, why will this fucker not respond? It's his job to do so. It is his job to do so. I don't want to have to report people, but I'll start doing it, which I'm going to start doing it because things are changing, if that makes sense. So, but it's email, read receipt. I know they're reading it, and when they put not read, that even pisses me off even more. It just means they don't care.
But, okay, we did this the other night. Heather, I don't know how many in the chat did this, but Heather and Basement and I know for sure did. And Heather was able to check it on her phone through her settings. But Basement and I had to download separate apps. And we checked to see how long we were on social media. And I don't know about you guys. For fuck's sake, because one day, and the day wasn't even fucking over. It was on Twitter for 7 hours off and on throughout that day, just by clicking on notifications.
I can't, my job requires me to be checking social media, so I can't really not. So I would probably
Yeah.
I'd probably be at 12, 13, 14 hours a day.
Right, but I was floored by that because I wasn't hanging out on Twitter all day. Like that was
Right.
just checking notifications. You know, in Basement said, I'm kind of anal about if there's a notification there, I just click on it and read it real quick, and so that goes away. By doing that all day long, it adds up to almost 8 hours.
Right. The guy that created that, I can't even remember the company, but he was like the main focus of the documentary portion of the show.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, the guy that was giving the speech?
Yeah.
Yep.
I liked how he I can't remember, did he work for Google?
I want
Or
to say
was
it was
it
Gmail.
Facebook?
No, I want to say it was I think it was Gmail.
Okay, so he worked for Google because Gmail is Google.
Yeah.
But okay, so I liked what he said where he was sitting there and he was saying, you know, he's like, I sighed. Or, you know, how he was saying, well, we go to the train and I would go home and I would sit down and I would be working. So instead of me actually enjoying my kids, I would be working. I would be on social media, not hanging out with my kids.
I caught myself doing that quite a few times.
I found that quite interesting because I've never, and I kind of catch myself doing it with Wendy. Right, Heather does too. But it's just one of. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say I've caught myself doing it with Bella because Bella will come inside and she'll be like, "Mommy," and I'm typing like to you guys or whoever, and I'm like, "Just one second, baby," because I just want to finish what I'm typing. But then it dawns on me, I just told my child to hold on so that I could fucking type a message that could easily be sent 5 minutes from now after she gets done talking. So I'm putting my child second. And that's not okay with me. I mean, I'm sure it's not okay with you guys that you're doing it to Wendy every once in a while, but you don't realize that you're doing it until you actually start thinking about it, and you almost have to put yourself into like a mental check.
Well, I want to make sure I'm not crazy, and I want to ask you guys something because I always have my phone on vibrate. Does anybody else only have their phone on vibrate? Anybody?
I have my phone on. I have my phone on vibrate because it excites my penis. But go ahead.
I do the exact same. Have you
had somewhere like the doctor's office or something like that? Then it'll be on vibrate.
Has anybody ever had those phantom vibrations?
Yes.
No.
Where it's like,
yeah,
I've had it multiple times where my phone sits in my right pocket on my thigh, and all of a sudden I feel like this vibration. My phone's not even in my pocket. But
that's a psychological thing, I think.
Not necessarily because I actually have the sound turned on my phone at all times unless I'm at the doctor or something, and I have gotten phantom beeps where it sounds like I'm getting a message in. So I'll pick up my phone, but there's nothing there.
The funny part is I've hardly 1 in a trillion has whatever I've been actually getting through my phone. Actually, 0 has what I've been getting through my phone actually important when it comes through vibration. If it's important, people call me. So like I my immediate reaction is to grab for my fucking phone, even though I know it's like this can wait. But my mind doesn't trigger that. It's like I gotta grab it, I gotta hold it, and I gotta see what it is. And most of the time, it's fucking bullshit.
Right.
Like when I say most, all of the time.
And that was another point that they made. If you feel like, and I have social media, and I do. I turn off my notifications when I'm at work. So
I don't get push notifications or anything because I don't want it.
Right. But I'm just saying, I turn off all my notifications. I don't. During work, I shut it off. On the weekends, I have it on. But I check it when I check it when I check it.
Have you guys ever had it? I'm sorry, JP. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but that's all I had to say. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Have you guys ever had it with Twitter, particularly, where it'll show up on the top of your phone that you have a message or something?
Mm-hmm.
And then
I don't allow it to do
no message there.
Yeah, well, I shut my notifications off. During the weekend, yes. or when I'm done work, I do.
The best thing I ever did was turn off any form of push notification for Twitter. I'll open Twitter just to see if there's something, but I don't get notified when anything's posted or I'm quoted or I'm part of like a chain, a text chain or anything like that. And I like fucking thank God I did that, or else I'd go insane.
Right.
Maybe that's what I'm gonna have to start doing, because like I have that happen quite frequently actually, where like it'll tell me that message on Twitter, and I'll click on it, and it'll be a message that I already got like 3 hours ago.
The one sometimes that happens.
I want to like bring it back a little bit, because I know you guys are talking about that application that allows you to look at your like usage time for certain things.
Yep.
The one thing I will say, it's my usage time is kind of skewed because I do usually have Twitter open on my computer. Whether I'm looking at it or not, it just stays open. And I'm at home all the time, working from home, so sometimes I check it on there. As for like my phone specifically, the things I use the most on my phone are probably media, whether it be YouTube or some other app to watch something, because while I'm working, I usually try to fill the empty space with that. If I'm not doing work or I don't have to do something else, I usually put up a 15-minute YouTube clip of something stupid just so I can pass the time. So my YouTube and media use, whatever it may be, whatever the Netflix or something else is way higher than anything else. Twitter is, I probably use about 45 to 30 minutes a day on Twitter. Not too bad. I probably used Chrome more because I browse more on that. But
I do too.
I don't know where you guys fell, but I did see Bobbits, and I know you guys posted, Heather, and you posted yours. So
I didn't. I don't, because I already know it's probably like fucking 18 fucking hours. But I use it fucking at work. I use it at work.
I'm the same. I'm in the middle of working. My YouTube is open. I might not be actively using it. It's just there until I have a break and I can press play again. That's it.
Right. No. Well, with me, social media. Like we have a Facebook page, so I'm always checking it. For Twitter, we're trying to create a Twitter page for work, and I'm always on Twitter, so I'm checking stuff like military sites and resources that are on Twitter, and that's what I do. That's what I do for a job. So it's like I'm trying to find resources for soldiers and ways for them to get said resources.
But like, to back it up a little bit even further, just talking about how like the influences. I found myself, and I'll admit it, I have many times I have gotten into that trap where you're on YouTube or whatever. You guys know I like to watch the environmental documentaries, right?
You like watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know that much. Jesus.
I mean, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't care.
But anyways, I don't know who's echoing. But anyway, I've had it before where I've been watching like an environmental documentary or some boring shit to everybody else, on
It is
YouTube.
Boring, trust me. It's fucking boring.
It is so easy to get down the rabbit hole. And like luckily for me, when it pertains to that particular topic, I took classes in college about it. So like all of the information and knowledge that I have on that particular topic comes from college. So I do have like the research background to it.
Now, I'm going to ask you this.
So much stuff.
I'm going to ask you this though. Is that knowledge from the instructor? Or is that knowledge of your own?
And that's knowledge coming from my instructor. And
how much knowledge is knowledge of your own? Let's be real.
I mean,
well, doing your own research is what I mean by knowledge.
But whatever you're researching is someone else's fucking shit.
Well, exactly. But like, this is like knowledge that I learned not just from my professor, but from books and from my own research and things like that. It's things that I have used to formulate my opinion on that particular thing. But when you go on YouTube, especially for me, knowing the quote unquote facts about certain issues, hazardous waste, for example, and you go on there, and all of a sudden you find yourself down this rabbit hole, and you're like, that's not true at all, So then you have to back out of it and figure out how the fuck you got there, because this is a documentary that you didn't start watching to initially start out with.
That's essentially what this documentary.
Exactly.
And you're one of the lucky ones that understands. It's like, why am I going down this rabbit hole when I know this is not true? I need to go back to where I first started from. And
Right.
that is and that's where this documentary takes you, and why social media or social platforms like YouTube, watching videos takes you down that rabbit hole.
Mhm.
People, and like Basement said, conspiracy theories. Where do you think conspiracy theories come from? It's from just going down a rabbit hole, and there is truth to every conspiracy theory out there. Like, I can tell you, well, a plane ran into the towers on 9/11. Okay, well,
every conspiracy
You
theory
know.
starts out as a fact.
yeah,
Starts out
That's
as a
what-
fact, and then it's built upon certain people's opinions, and it just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it turns
Mhm.
into a conspiracy theory.
But I can guarantee you, every conspiracy out there gets to a place where, in order to believe something, you have to believe something else. They always get to a point where it's
Yep.
like, well, this hasn't been proven, but if it was, then this would have happened, then this would have happened, and this would have. I can't, like, you're asking me to continue to suspend disbelief because you get to a point where you can't factually prove something, and then you get a lot of people riled up because everybody
And this
is more willing to, go against big company, big government, things like that. It's always been the popular thing to do.
we saw
go ahead.
this. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, when we all did the JFK episode on Derailed like a
Mhm.
few years ago, we saw this exact thing. Like, how many fucking hours were we live? What was it, like 6 or 8 hours we were live?
Yeah, we were talking in circles.
Because everybody was talking in circles, because there was this nonstop train of like possibilities that could have happened. You had what they said happened. There was this nonstop train of events that could have led to what ultimately happened.
Yeah.
And it's just like this giant fucking rabbit hole that just ultimately ends up leading you into a circle of not knowing.
Yeah.
And you're never gonna know.
We had this, and talking about this, and it has to do with social media. So we had a guy that I worked with. He's not there anymore, but he was talking about the man on the moon thing, the landing on the moon. And he's like, you need to watch this video. So I watched this video, and I'm like, well, this is all debunked. So why not when I watch this? And then it took me down a rabbit hole, and I'm like, you're trying to get me to believe something that is not true. So what it was telling me is that they didn't land on the moon. They were taking pictures of photos. Anybody can doctor photos. Okay, so essentially, social media takes you down. Like, you can type in landing on the moon conspiracy theories in YouTube and go down that rabbit hole. Everything has a rabbit hole. Me taking a poop probably has a rabbit hole. I'm serious.
I don't want to know about the rabbit hole.
That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you're not wrong, and that's just the way conspiracy theories are formed. And they do touch on it in the documentary. I think they talk about Kyrie Irving and his. I went down a rabbit hole to think that the world was flat, but that's because he just continued to be fed information that the world is flat and never thought maybe it's not. I mean, when he said a bunch of this shit, he was a bit of a younger player, but I mean, in the end, you grow up, you learn, you think certain things. People go through all this shit. You get to a point where you might be embarrassed about your previous thoughts. I think we all do. But Gina, you said you had a final. I do still want to talk about the documentary, but I think you can say the final point, and then we can get to. I do want to review it a bit, if you don't mind.
I would love to review it. Go ahead, Gina.
Well, Gina killed herself.
She did.
Opened Twitter and she started scrolling, and then she never stopped.
She went down a rabbit hole.
She now believes that the Earth is triangle.
These conspiracy theories, and they delved into that quite a bit. I think they spent like a half an hour of it talking about conspiracy theories on social media, which led into the Pizzagate. It led into the Russia conspiracy with Facebook. What else? What other thing did they talk about on there? Myanmar? Myanmar?
Yeah.
Yeah,
how, that whole thing led to like on Facebook, all these like quote unquote lies turned into getting actual people killed.
Well, in Myanmar, isn't it Myanmar where if you get a cell phone over there, the first app they install the first app or whatever, you open it up and you turn on the phone and Facebook. It's automatically you open up Facebook and they create an account for you. And they do the whole, so you have an account with Facebook and you open it up and everybody spends time on Facebook, not putting in contacts for anybody to actually talk to people, because what is a phone the cell phone for? It's to call people. And I get it. Yes, you can check your social media and all that shit on there now. Go ahead.
Right. I know that we've spent quite a bit of time talking about like the truths that we saw in the documentary. We touched a little bit on like the things that they kind of not necessarily had wrong, but maybe not had all the facts there. My question is, after watching this documentary, do you guys think that the documentary is kind of doing exactly what they're saying is wrong with social media, as far as like with the fear mongering and the polarizing opinions, and creating and persuading thoughts? Because like when I was watching it, I kind of, they were obviously trying to throw facts out, but at certain points in time, especially with the dramatization, felt like they were trying to not persuade us to get away from social media, but I don't even know if it's persuading us to be more careful on social media, or their end goal was. I wasn't quite sure what the end goal was, but
the one goofy looking dreadlock guy wanted you to shut your social media off. But
need to do everything the hippie way. Oh my god, the guy drove me nuts.
That guy reminded me of the prototypical conspiracy theorist.
He is.
He was just. He had no emotion.
He has valid points to, and he and I will say this. He kind of is I could probably kind of agree with him to a certain extent. Don't be on it so much. Go out and look at the world. Yeah. Go out and take a walk. You don't have to be on social media 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think that was essentially what his point was, but he's one of those guys that, he deleted all media.
Right.
But then he's one of those purist people, I think.
Mm-hmm. But if you guys remember,
modern day hippie.
You remember when I came to you with this idea, the first thing I said was, guys, I just watched this documentary that I found really interesting and terrifying at the same time. Fear-mongering.
It's fear-mongering. The one that you sit there and they ask that question, so what's wrong with social media? And you see every single one of them's like, I don't know if I want to answer this
documentary. It's a movie. It's produced.
It is.
So, some of those reactions, God knows if it was rehearsed or not. Who knows? Right? They all have participated. They've all participated in something that they obviously want to talk about. So there might be because the documentary starts, what's wrong with social media? None of them can answer. And then the rest of the documentary is them answering that fucking question. So I don't really know if that's 100% true. I do the thing. All the talking points I had is exactly linked to what you said. How much of this documentary is what they're trying to fight against? First problem, It's being produced as original content by Netflix. Netflix does these practices.
Yes, they do.
The binge watching, the addictive. They've capitalized on the addictive nature of people. That's how they've made their company, right? They've monetized addictive nature by releasing a full show at one time and getting people to spend 24 hours, with 14 of those 24 hours watching a TV show that they've made.
So can we say this? And I think Basement's trying to say this: Netflix is part of the problem, not the solution.
Netflix is doing the exact same thing that everybody else is. Yeah. That being said, I mean, good luck getting this documentary out on a platform that's not doing that. So it's a knock against Netflix. It's not necessarily a knock against the platform. It's got to get out there some way. No matter what, if they chose YouTube, it's the same fucking thing. They can't get away from it. I will say the one thing that concerned me is like everybody that they interviewed, all the people that they had on there, it came with a good and a bad, because all of those people were former like pundits in the industry, right? They were former CEOs. You're in charge of marketing and this. The thing is, when you're that deep in a company, that's your life. You are so embedded in it that you only have the point of view where that is your point of view. It's not. They didn't have anybody on there that wasn't that. That wasn't so ingrained. Like 90, except for maybe the fucking dreadlock guy, and he's a different story. But the other ones were all former heads of industry that questioned the morality behind what they were doing. But is it fair to only listen to people that have been so ingrained in something that they see only a certain point of view in it? Where it's like, then this is why I think they never talked about the user's ability to say fucking no, I'm done, I'm logging out, I'm not going to sign up.
As if we're fucking just guinea pigs. Like we don't have choices.
They were talking to people like they were when they were working those jobs, but like they were looking at data.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair.
They actually portrayed us like that. They portrayed us like that. If you remember with the boy in the dramatization, they literally had that like figure that looked just like the boy with those three dudes that were like, oh, well, he's not responding, throw this at him. And then all of a sudden you see the boy, and as time goes on, the more he's in social media, the more and more the mannequin looking thing is just kind of
call it an avatar.
I'm gonna say right now the dramatization aspect of this documentary was a huge misstep, at least from like a movie point of view, a documentary point of view. For me, at least, I can only speak from my own perspective. It just seemed out of place. It was ham-fisted. Every time they tried to show you something, it's like, we're going to try to show you like the perfect family and then show the holes that social media is creating. And then we're going to turn this one kid being more interested in a girl to being 100% interested in a rally and shit like that. And it's like, that was just, it was so fake and corny to me.
And not only that,
I did that part of the movie I did not like at all.
Not only that, but in the dramatization, they took it a step too far, if you ask me, because
all of it was taken. It's all extremes.
I mean, yes, I know that, like, yes, this can happen over an extended amount of time, but to have this boy go from being a normal teenage boy interested in girls, all of a sudden he gets what was it? A group kind of like similar. Like
he started listening to like
next thing, and it ends with him fucking getting arrested. You know, it's like,
and his sister getting arrested because she was part of it, even though she was preaching not to do it.
She was trying to save him, and she got dragged into it.
Well, like Rayshon said, there was a Lifetime movie like intertwined into a documentary, and I simply think it's because they didn't like. I don't think movie and documentary should ever really meet. It weakens both. None of them will be successful by doing that.
I mean, it did try to get its point across.
I know that's what the point was, but it was almost as if like there was a little bit of like they used the dramatization in order to not have to talk about the fact that we have free will.
Well, the fact that they thought they needed the dramatization in the documentary is almost an insult to people's intelligence. Like, I don't need you to show me a dramatization of what this means, because you present. Everybody lives this life. You don't need to see it again in like a arguably poorly acted fucking weird segments that are like nothing makes sense. The family dynamic made no sense. It was like the Fast and the Furious of family. They had every single fucking race and creed at the family dinner table. I was like, what the fuck? Are they adopting people? Are they like a biracial couple that just adopted everybody? And they never explained any of that. So I was already like, this family doesn't even make sense from a visual point of view. But then you had like characters just doing the worst fucking shit known to mankind. The kid gets up and gets safety goggles out of nowhere.
Well, this is where it went too extreme for me. When the next thing she's sitting there. I mean, what parent would just sit there and watch their kid try to open a fucking container?
No, I'd be like, come on, you can't open it. It's on a locked timer.
And then the next thing you know, they just go back to talking or whatever. And then the next thing you know, she's got fucking goggles and she's got a hammer in her hand. She smashes it. And then they look at each other like, are you going to handle this? I'm not going to handle this. I don't know what to do. What the fuck is that?
She just takes the phone and goes upstairs. And the father's like, I guess I'll go talk to her. We don't see what that looks like. Like, what the fuck?
I think in that dramatization, they were both trying to portray, one, how addicted the girl was to the phone, but also how social media can drive a wedge in between family. Because if you remember, at the end of it, the fucking dinner table, they left. The only one that was left at the dinner table was the one that didn't have a cell phone.
Well, here's the problem.
But it was so fucking overly done.
It reminds me of somebody trying to prove a point that's in drama class. In all honesty, because you have a whole family that you have someone preparing and making this whole dinner, and just because the girl got up and broke the glass and ran upstairs, everybody's like, I guess I'm never going to be hungry again. Time to just leave. Who gives a fuck? It was weird. Like the dramatization thing, like it turned a very, I guess, somewhat. It turned an informative documentary into, like, it really took it down a couple notches for me.
Because, it did, like, for me too.
Now they're just forcing you to see what they're trying to say statistically.
And I think one thing that they didn't touch on that I really wish that they would have touched on was particularly when they were talking about the kids. They didn't talk about the parental influence, or they didn't talk about the parental apps that parents
seem like they were fucking retarded, man.
I would have appreciated, right?
The parents were the worst.
They were, but I would have appreciated much more if they would have kind of talked about how how these teenagers are getting around parental apps in order to be able to use the social media, incorporate it into a form of addiction, because it does happen, but they didn't address it at all.
No, they talked about it, but then they didn't tell you that there's any way to. They created, like, in your mind a monster or something, and I was like, oh, it is that way. But they didn't touch on the things that you could do as a person to kind of solve it, and why people might leave social media and come back. These are super important things to the message you're sending, and you omit them because it doesn't build the strong reaction you want. This is why, and I've always said it, why I don't 100% care for documentaries. They create strong reactions, but they show one side and create strong reactions from it. Some of them, like the telecom one, is like the other side is what, a whale's point of view. You're never going to see that. So that was fine, because there's literally one point of view there. But with this, there is definitely more than one, and they just didn't care to show it.
Well, and they didn't. Yeah, they might have touched on, this is like, parents can do this, this, and this. But through that dramatization, like you guys were saying, I do not know a single parent that, I'm sorry, I do know a couple of parents that would have done the exact same thing, unfortunately. But I don't know if it's just geared more towards parents of this era, because there are a lot of parents that would have just reacted that way. Like JP, Heather, and I, we're more old school era. Like if our kids do something like that, there's going to be all fucking hell to pay. Like,
you're that little shit a fucking swirly. That's what I
right. I feel like the sad part is most parents are like that. No, I'm sorry.
The only way it makes sense is if they just adopted her last Wednesday. They're not willing to do the hard truth with her, and it makes sense because they're all like they're all fucking. I mean, like. like
But you
it had a
also
good
have-
message, but it had the presentation and
Mhm.
like it really hampered itself along the way with what it was saying, and it even leaned into talking about conspiracy theories and how the media can be used to sway politicians and this and that. So it did kind of get into murky waters.
did.
The strongest thing about this documentary for me was when it talked to the kids and the kids' usage of social
Okay.
media and how it's such a huge negative. It was hands down the strongest thing they said.
The one thing I agree with you, and the one reason, not one, there was a lot of reasons why I like this segment, but the main reason why I like that is because they actually threw out factual evidence through
That's the
numbers. And
only
yes,
time
I
they
did
did.
look it up. Yeah, and I
literally
did look
the
it up,
only
and
time
they
they
were
did.
right. Yeah, they were right. Those numbers are factual numbers.
Which is
But
what
like you
kills
said,
me.
that's the only time that they ever did.
What kills me is the fact that there's got to be numbers in social media usage available to a public audience, yet they chose to not show them to like documentaries usually have to give me some fact, and what they relied on instead is the talking points of the figureheads from from the companies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's give me some facts, man.
Yep.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
And the sad factor is like Basement, like you were saying before, most documentaries don't throw factual evidence at you. It's very one-sided. You look at
But they
Stephen
still factual
Avery,
evidence
for example.
to present that one side. This didn't even do that. It showed one actual statistical fact, and that's it.
I mean, you look at documentaries like that Stephen Avery case. They showed everything on Netflix in those documentaries that made it look like Stephen Avery was 100% innocent. And I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent, but they never showed the prosecution side, which they were supposed to be coming out with some form of documentary about that, but that never came to be. So then you're left with only the viewpoint of the defense.
No. On a more comedic note, that main guy that was speaking the whole time.
Yes.
Did he not remind you of Zuckerberg a lot? Like just the
He
way he
did. That's what I thought it was.
Yes, I will say, but I actually liked him because he made a lot of sense.
The one thing I didn't like about him was when they were like, "What's your addiction?" And he was like, "Oh, I used to check Twitter all the time. I used to Instagram." He's like, "I was addicted to email." I'm like, "Oh, good fucking god, addicted to email." What?
Like, get back to me when you're fucking addicted to TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook all at the same time.
Who the fuck
that's
is
the thing, because I'm
email?
addicted to email, because if I get an email, I get excited.
Well, you're weird. I'm going to start emailing you.
I've never gotten excited about an email.
I don't understand.
It's my job. That is what I do. Email. That is how I get my resources out, or how.
But then it's your job. It's not necessarily an addiction.
Oh no! It's like, oh my god, I'm getting an email. Oh my god, it's like cocaine.
I'm almost there.
Oh no, email.
I heard that. I was like, email.
I thought the same thing.
What is this?
And it's funny how you said, "Does he not remind you of Zuckerberg?" Because that's literally the first.
He had those weird, like, red rings around his eyes, super white skin. He looked like a vampire that hasn't
and
fed.
the curly hair up on top.
Yeah, he was a weird looking motherfucker. But I like the thing is, I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of what they were saying was there to like build the documentary. Every documentary has to put like the belief or fear in someone, or else it can't be a documentary. Otherwise, no one wants to watch something that's like, this could happen, or it couldn't, or it's this way, or it's that, because no one gives a shit at that point.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think that they actually said, "Well, this is going to happen." I mean, at the end of it,
said Civil War immediately.
Yeah, they could. Oh God, I have it down here.
Yeah, they actually did do like
creating tribalism.
Didn't they do a call to action at the end of the
Yeah, well, they
They did,
actually
because they
asked
said
that
that-
question. It's like, well, what do you think is going to happen? I said, well, I have optimism, and then there was one on there that said there's going to be a war, which is going on right fucking now because of fucking social media between the right and the left here in the United States. It's literally happening.
I mean, I guess I could say I could see that
mean,
point.
I would say, like, if I saw the worst case scenario, civil war, but I don't know if like how many of these fucking keyboard warriors you think gonna be like, you know what, it's time to pick up a weapon and run into battle. Mom,
Right.
make me a glass of milk because I'm ready to go.
I mean, there was a quote towards the end of the movie, and I want to know what you guys think about this. They said, "How do you wake up from the Matrix when you don't even know you're in the Matrix?"
You don't. But I mean,
But I mean that's
how
the
do you
quote
not end
that,
up in the Matrix?
but that's the quote that they use to compare social media to, because
And
social media.
It's so heavy-handed
they said that
because it's
but
not
they
a
said that
comparison.
your free will is being taken away, and if you have brain and you can think on your own, then your free will is not
I
being
have
taken
brain.
away.
I have brain.
It is only going to be taken away if you allow it to be. And the sad fact is a lot of people are allowing it to be.
How do you wake up from the Matrix when you can just log off?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
like the whole documentary omitted the fact that people can just stop doing it. It's like, but you won't, because every time you're gonna get those little one red circle, and it's like, no, well, what if I just delete it?
But I'm telling you right now, if it wasn't for like my friends that I met on Twitter, I would have deleted that shit a long time ago. Or if it wasn't for my family on Facebook, I've thought about deleting Facebook quite a few times. But
And
I have
don't
family on
Facebook.
there.
I don't have Instagram. I have Twitter and I have YouTube. Twitter's there to react and to talk to you guys, and that's pretty much it.
I have pretty much everything. Okay, I have.
Hey.
Well, I just got rid of my TikTok. But
Why'd you get rid of TikTok?
I was taking up too much. I still have an account. It was just taking up too much space in my phone.
See, smart
And
girl.
I have an Instagram account, but it's not on my phone. Basically, on my phone, I have Snapchat, but my biggest things on my phone are Facebook and Twitter. Twitter is my addiction. I am 100% addicted to Twitter, and I don't even know why.
I have a hate-love relationship. I hate Twitter. I hate everything about Twitter, but I love a small section of it. And
You know what?
like the people that I've met, and the good, like every now and then you get a good conversation going on Twitter with people you don't know, and it's fun to, like, even if you poke fun at someone, they come back poke fun at you in a chat, and then you kind of get along. The thing I hate is when you try to say something that is not, the opinion is in the middle completely. Yet you still have people being like, well, forget about the middle. I'm somewhere off in the fucking
if you're not on my side, then you're wrong. Like,
yeah. And like, every time I've seen this on Twitter and I look at the person's account, guess what? Following 0 followers. Oh, I know who you are. Yeah, the same fucking troll that exists in every other stratosphere where you can't keep on Twitter because you keep getting banned for being a hateful son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and
Go ahead.
we've all dealt. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say we've all dealt with people like that, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube. We've dealt with them a lot on YouTube. It's just become a regular thing in daily life, and it's sad that it's come to that, but that's what it is.
Right. I mean, about the only thing, and this will probably be my final take, and then I'll let Heather come over here. About the only take that I can say about social media itself, and the only take that I can take away from this documentary isn't don't believe everything that you hear in social or read or see in social media. With the I enjoyed the documentary because they had some good points, but I'm not gonna delete my social media because I don't buy into the fear mongering bullshit that they feed you. If it wasn't for Twitter, I wouldn't have Heather, I wouldn't have Wendy, I wouldn't have you guys. If I didn't have Facebook, I would not be able to talk to half of my family, which I sometimes don't want to talk to half of them anyway. Yes, we did hear about Cam Newton. We'll talk about that on Tuesday. But yeah, it's social media. It has its good points. It has its bad points. Most of the time it has its bad points, but they're few and far between are good points. And that sucks.
Right.
Because that's not what social media was created for. It was meant to reach out to other people and try and build relationships. It's become about what an algorithm wants you to do. Because all of these high-tech companies, all they want to do is make fucking money off of you. And that sucks. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But at the same point, it's like, why do you feel like you need to be a billionaire? And one thing that I do want to say is, like, on this thing is, the dreadlock guy did make a good point. It's like, we are a little neuron in the... How do I say it? I can't even think of how he said it.
They basically equated people to data.
Yeah.
And basically, like, they don't care about you as a person. They just care about influencing you and what you're going to do. But that's business. We live in a capitalistic world. That's what's going to happen. That's just the way like, if it didn't make money, it wouldn't exist. So think about it that way.
Right.
So if you're praising the things that Twitter has brought to you, JP, if it wasn't making money, you wouldn't have that platform to do it on.
You are correct.
That's where they don't really discuss that. Like, I mean, it does paint a picture as capitalism being a bad thing,
which isn't true.
Of all the bad things that's becoming of it. And when people want to go to a different platform for how the world works, socialism or something else, you have to understand that when money becomes paramount over people, people are secondary, where people don't put privilege, color, anything like social standing, royalty above each other. It's all about money. And I'm not saying it can't be corrupted, because it's obviously been just like anything else. But
right.
look at the extremes version of corruption that could happen from any other way the world might work. So, yep. I mean, though I get where they're coming from, and I do appreciate the way that they've put some of the things together in this documentary, I do feel like they build this assumption that the regular everyday person is a moron.
Yeah,
and
that's where I had a problem with this documentary, is because so you're calling me a fucking idiot.
Yeah, they act like we don't have any free will. And Nate from VA in the chat said, I feel like this: you control your own social media. You have a choice on what you post, respond to, and what you allow into your world. Yet sometimes we all take things personal, and sometimes we don't. We fail to remember that at the end of the day, we control what we post and what we allow. And that's what we're talking about right now, Nate. This documentary failed to acknowledge the fact that we have free will.
We do.
And we have...
But you know why? It's because it was told from a bunch of people that lived in the business, where like the people that are talking to us saying this company treats you like a piece of data, they never got away from that thought process. They still treat
exactly. They don't look at us as people, and you could tell that in the documentary just by the way that they were talking about us, because we weren't people. Like, we weren't living, breathing people with thoughts and opinions and choices for ourselves. We were just these like animated creatures.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is, and remember they asked that question at the beginning, and I think I said this in the middle. This whole thing is about the algorithm. What is the
Mhm.
problem with social media? It is the algorithm. It is the algorithm. But that's essentially all I have to say. I'm gonna let Heather sit down because I gotta make a tinky out of my winky. And
There was
Okay.
oh god, there was this one person they had on there. She was only on there for like a split second, but she was like, the difference is people used to trade in the futures of different company technologies, things like that. But now there's companies trading in the futures of people, where they're looking at what are the futures of who we can market to and how we're going to market to them. So, and one side of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, that's scary. But at the other time, I'm thinking that is the logical evolution to the consumerism world we live in. Just because you're
Mhm.
marketing to someone doesn't mean they're buying everything you're giving them.
Yeah,
Like,
and
they just automatically assume that the economy is just going to allow for that to happen. Most people get to a point when you're old enough to buy no more than you need because you can't fucking afford it.
right. And Emily brought up how people are not happy about President Trump wanting to ban TikTok. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't happy about it either because I love my TikTok, but I understand it. Because if you actually take a look back and you look at why he wanted to ban TikTok in the whole realm of things, it's because it presented a national security risk, because the Chinese government had access to American people's data, and that's national security hazards. So that was what that is all about, and they're trying to get it situated. So TikTok, I mean, it may not be here. We just have to accept that.
But to Nate's point too, the idea of, like, he was basically saying that social media, how did we receive things before social media, right? There's various avenues. But what's the difference between fake news? Well, there is a difference, but it still existed in the media platform where you're at a checkout in a supermarket, and you look over to the left and you see those fucking magazines. And all those magazines are saying is clickbait shit.
Yep.
And you saw it there.
Yep.
Now it's just on a platform that everybody uses. It's just a natural progression of where it would go. It existed before.
You turn on the nightly
and
news
say
and,
no.
and you get the shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter if it's social media, magazines, or even your nightly news on NBC, CNN, whatever the hell you're watching. Everything is persuaded by one side or another side.
Yeah, know the platform you're watching and know what they're going to be presenting you. That the onus goes on the person using it, and the documentary completely washed that over, and that was
And
my biggest problem with it.
And not only know what you're watching and everything, but have have a strong enough brain in order to be able to form your own opinion. And
Do
if
the
something
research too.
Yes, I was just going to say that too, Heather. Like, if something catches your eye and you're interested in it, research it. Find out the other aspect of it. Don't just formulate an opinion based on something that you heard on social media or on the news, whatever, because fake news is fucking everywhere these days.
I want to take a
This is
quick
the way
time
it is.
out, and it's because what I think I heard, and I think I'm right. I want to talk to Nate specifically because I think Nate did come down with the coronavirus. Did he not?
He did.
Nate, how are you doing, man? Like, just like,
Yeah.
and listen, I don't know you. I've never met you. I've met you on social media, and I know some of who you are. But this is one of the good things where you can kind of be there for the people that are suffering. He recently had twins, I think, and they're not
You're like a
recently.
year or two old now.
Yeah, not
There are
recently.
two now.
They're still recent to me.
Yep.
It's time flies. But how are you doing, man? That's the glorious thing about social media is in an age where, especially with coronavirus going around, you don't have the ability to kind of be there physically for a lot of people. The people that you meet online, at least you have like an outlet where people do care and they do see and they do want to know.
Yeah. And the whole thing with the coronavirus too, they spoke about, that was one of the topics in the documentary. Just with the fake news around the coronavirus. Like, what was it on that show with fucking Whoopi Goldberg or whatever?
Yep.
Stupid The View.
In
it's
The
called.
View. Yep.
Yeah, they asked can you get coronavirus from eating Chinese food? You know, these are just those stupid little things that people have come up with and just put on social media, and people are actually buying into this shit.
I will say, from a personal point of view, I have become very frustrated with the way the world works because, and I had this conversation with some of my other friends the other night where I was like, we were talking about some different political point of views or different like talking points. And I'm like, I'm at that point where I'm getting to a place where I don't have a knee-jerk reaction for anything because I don't trust anything I'm being told. I'm willing to wait and have the patience to see what plays out, get the different point of views, and then make a decision. But it puts me at a place where I don't know what's real and what's not. And that they did talk about this in the documentary. That's scary for a lot of people, myself included. When I'm looking at the news, whatever outlet it is, I don't know what's real and what's not.
Exactly. And Aaron, to actually answer your question, yes, they said in the documentary you could Google something and it'll be based more on what region you are in. However, it still gives you the opportunity to find the actual truth. And
yeah, because
making it so you can deduce your own opinion on a certain topic.
Because what the example that they used, what was it? Climate change is,
yes,
and then the whole dot and whatever popped up, and that stuff's going to be based on your region. But if you type in, okay, let's say you believe in climate change, so you go and you want to learn the other side, so you type in climate change is a hoax, then you're going to get information about it not being true, or vice versa. You can still find the truth.
But they did start off that documentary with saying, you know, whatever you type into Google is basically going to form an answer on what not only you but the people in your region are talking about.
Yes.
So everything we might talk about, where the autofill is going to be different for all of us, and for that is a dangerous thing. It is, but you're armed with knowledge. You're armed with the ability to know. As an adult in this world, you need to take advantage of that. That's on you, because are you going to trust the world to tell you that, or are you going to trust the world to have the information for you to learn the truth of certain things, or at least try to discern your own?
If you think about it, though, this type of way of persuading learning has been around way before the internet, because teachers did it. I mean, yep. I remember being back in school, and we were learning about like the Native American the war of 1895, or I think it's 1895. Yeah, and like they omit certain things. I didn't actually. They mentioned the Trail of Tears, but they never went into full detail about what actually happened, because at that point in time, they were not supposed to make the American government look bad.
No, it wasn't that, Gina. Actually, around that time, that's when they started basing the curriculum off of testing scores and which way to get your school the best testing score so that school can get the most money from the government.
Right. So then, like, you know, you're missing information with that. For another example, just last week, or I'm sorry, not last week, 9/11. Bella came home from school that day, and she was telling me how they had learned about 9/11, and she asked me where I was that day. So I started telling her how I was in school, you know, and all the events that happened that day. They had not explained. They told them basically that terrorists had attacked us and stuff, but they had not actually explained what actually happened. She had no idea that the planes had gone into the World Trade Center. She had no idea that the plane had hit the Pentagon. She had no idea that a plane was hijacked that day and that people died. They didn't mention any of that. So
because it's not important for the test.
System, yeah, right. So like the education system has been doing this long before the internet ever did.
That's because
before we move on to really anything else, let's conduct a little experiment. I have Google open. I put climate change is in, and Why don't everybody else do that and tell me what the last predicted result is?
The last one?
The very last
mine is-
one. Yep.
Mine is climate change
Let me go
issues
to
in
Google.
Canada 2020.
Climate change is what, Basement?
Climate change issues in Canada 2020.
Bobbit?
Mine is climate change is an absolute nightmare.
Mine? Climate change is not caused by humans.
You want me to put mine in? Oh,
It'll be the same
Mine
because you're in the same
is-
region.
Mine is I have like the most simple one possible. Climate change is good.
My very first
no,
one.
no. Mine says climate change is real shirt.
That's the first one. What's the last one?
JP, you want to hear the funny part? That's your first one?
Climate change is not a threat.
Okay, hold on. You just said climate change is real shirt.
Yes,
Is your
that's our
first one.
first.
That-
Yeah,
That is 100% regional based because that is my very first one too. And that doesn't even fucking make sense. Climate change is real shirt. What the fuck is that?
it's a shirt that's being sold.
And my first one is the shirt one too.
See, people
And you
are
know
buying
what?
their shirts. It's trendy.
And you know what? It changes too because, like, okay, the first time that I read it, I didn't have a space after is, right? If you hit the space bar,
Uh-huh.
now mine says climate change is inevitable as the last one.
So that proves their theory, right? Their states in the documentary there with Google.
Well, it doesn't prove anything.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Google search is not universal. It's specific to what you've searched in the past. They're trying to build a profile.
I've never searched Google. I've never searched climate change at all
I have.
on this computer.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and that's probably where you're getting it from. But I've looked up climate change from both perspectives, and that's why it's giving me issues in Canada. But if I look at the other things that they're telling me, it's a mixed bag. It's a nightmare. It's too late. Good for business caused by a natural process on Earth. The biggest challenge. So it's kind of like I've confused Google to
Right.
tell me both it's terrible and great.
For Nate, it's HARP connected to climate change.
Climate change is HARP connected to climate change.
Yeah, climate change. I don't want.
I wasn't.
But
No. I was not
nobody
trying to
knows-
make climate change a discussion. I was just saying that's the most valid thing that I can think of at the moment.
Well,
Well,
that's
and
what they said. That was what they led the documentary with. Type climate change is, and you'll get a different answer.
Yeah,
For
but
no matter where you are.
and, you know,
Sure.
You know what the really weird thing is too is the fact that, like, okay, my last one. You guys know how I am. I'm not going into this, but you know how I am with climate change.
Yes.
And I watch like a bunch of documentaries and stuff about it. So I obviously have an interest in it. But what's ironic about it is my very last one was climate change is good.
Mm-hmm.
Opposite thing that I've searched on my computer, which
Because
is
that's going to
great
lead
because
you.
then I can have an opportunity.
Because that's going to lead you into clicking that link and giving that person that extra click and
Exactly.
that extra 3 cents.
Right. So and it sucks because, like, just in order to be able to see the other side of the argument, just by doing that, I'm giving them money.
Yeah.
Well, it's all money based, but at the same time, it's like look at all the resources, digest as much of it as you can, try to form an opinion, go with it
Mhm.
that way. I'm in no position to actually understand the intricacies of climate change. I'm
Nobody
relying on
is.
experts. The problem is experts have unfortunately been swayed one way or the other to
Multiple
present a
times.
certain narrative. This is why, like,
Oh.
a world confused is a huge problem, and most
But
people
you
are
know what?
confused.
The
If they,
whole
if they,
pro- no.
they try to learn, they're confused.
The whole problem is this has been a political issue, and I say political issue because of the fact that it's been in politics since fucking Al Gore.
Yeah.
But
Because
you know what, though?
he's
Like,
the one who brought up global warming.
You know what the funny thing is, though?
You
I mean,
created the internet.
okay, again, everybody knows how I am with this. I've gotten in how many arguments about this stuff, but even with how I think and how concrete my opinion is, I am still willing to debate and talk about it and hear other people's opinions about it. Why? Because that's just how the fucking world works. The world does not revolve solely around your opinion. And that is where I think a lot of today's world is going wrong, because these young kids are being raised to feel as if their opinion is the only one that matters. And that's just not the fucking case at all. You're going to go through your entire life having to deal with hundreds of people that don't have the same opinion as you do. And you're going to have
Exactly.
to learn how to work with them.
Exactly. I mean, that's why I feel schools should bring back the debate club.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
with that, you're also forming future politicians.
well, what you're
Mhm.
forming most is somebody that's objective instead of
Exactly.
Mhm.
subjective, right? So, I mean, objectivity is a lost art in today's world. People just want to feel one emotion or the other, and we touched on this before. But
Right.
as it pertains
So-
to this documentary, I feel like if I had to rate this documentary as a documentary in general,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel I might fall around like 6.5, a 7. I really feel like the dramatization hurt it, and it was
Mhm.
very one-sided in something that everybody knows about, where they need to tell a different point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to be right there with you. I mean, I
Mhm.
agree with everything
Same.
that you said. It was a good documentary, but like you said, the dramatization just it brought it down, and
The dramatization is what made people
One-sided.
laugh at it.
Yeah, it was
exactly.
so corny, and it was like I was watching it, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" And then I started looking at the dramatization as an actual movie, and that's where I came up with the point, like, what is this family composition? Second of all, what is
You gotta
this,
remember, everybody, we need to be extreme center.
Well,
Mhm.
when I saw the composition of the family, I'm thinking they are trying to hit they're trying to hit every demographic, just like Fast and the
Yep.
Furious does. It was popular for them, so it's gonna be popular for us. And then they started talking about like business practices and how they like prey on people's addictive nature. And I'm like, it's a Netflix original.
Yeah.
And not only that, but just the fact that they had to use so many different people of different races and stuff in one family in order to portray everyone.
Yeah.
They're doing
The thing is,
exactly what they're
the
saying
thing
that
is,
social media does.
the thing is the race like it just stood out to me where it didn't need to. They could be an entire black family, Asian family, white family. It didn't matter what the family.
It could have
race
even
was.
been a mixed family. Just
It had
for
nothing
A
fuck's
to
true
do.
sake,
mixed family, not
If
this
they're gonna do it,
hodgepodge.
if they're gonna do a dramatization, they might as well do it in a place like everything with the dramatization was taking me out of the idea of being believable, which was
Mhm.
unfortunate. And I don't think dramatization deserves to be in a documentary at all, unless it's like a documentary about real world
The-
things where they're like, we're
the-
gonna have to replay this with the dramatization,
like
and they
like a
put
crime
this
documentary,
dramatization-
kind of.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they put this is a dramatization on the bottom of the screen just so that they can get you there. But oh
For-
my god.
For me, the best documentaries that I've ever seen are actually like the ones that they show in school, where it's like, well, what they used to show in school anyway. I don't know what they show in school now, but the ones that actually have factual evidence in them, and they come at you with not only with numbers, but just with facts that statistical facts that you know are true.
Well,
Those
I'm
are
at
the
that
best
point,
documentaries.
and I told you this, Gina, long ago with
Mhm.
documentaries. I'm like, I'm very skeptical of watching them because
Yeah, I
they're
keep on trying to
very
get him to watch documentaries, but he won't.
they're very like promoting of one side because that's how they get made. And when they
Mhm.
do that, they omit a different side. They create a strong opinion, and a strong opinion might be needed for some of the things. But when you don't take the effort to show how what you're saying might not be true, it's like every documentary is selling you an idea. It's just selling you. Is what it is. And when somebody sells you something, it's like, oh, I want to sell you my used car. I'm not going to tell you the fact that the catalytic converter is all fucked up and shit like that. Hey, look at this spoiler. It's great.
No, but that's why you should stick with the crime documentaries, because they're going off the facts of the case.
Right?
Sometimes even they.
Well, I mean, Alpha, I will say with the Fast and the Furious, the only reason I pinpointed to that because they do involve a diverse cast of people. I think that's good, in my honest opinion. I feel like every kid, even though like we get to a point where you can look up to somebody regardless of their skin color.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of kids
I'm telling you right now,
relate to a certain person because their skin color, and you do like all kids need that. So I'm not.
But that's been happening forever because I don't know about anybody else out there, but I looked up. I adored the guy from Reading Rainbow when I was in elementary school. Like, I mean, he was a black guy, but it didn't matter because he was fucking amazing. Like, the guy from Reading Rainbow was just fucking awesome.
It's the same guy from Star Trek Next Generation.
I've looked up to like a bunch of different characters, regardless of what color, or even sometimes the human race. But for young kids and stuff, I do think it's important for them to see like a strong figurehead that kind of reminds them of themselves in some way.
Yes,
I do think it's an important thing. So I'm not against that. I'm not against movies kind of putting that in, because especially a movie made like Fast and the Furious, it's a superhero movie now, to be honest. So
with this right here, we go back to like when the Cosbys became big in the 80s. You know, I mean, that was one of the reasons why the Cosbys became as big as they did, because before the Cosbys, there was not a family show.
Yeah, but the Cosbys didn't become big off the black population in the U.S. They became big because they were just fun. But like, I know what you're saying. I get you.
But yeah, because like before that, there wasn't a family show that was directly geared towards, you know, the black families or whatever, you know. So that was like a big stepping stone. It's really fucking sad to me that we're still in the same spot where like
we're only there because
and all these different diversity.
We're only there because we put ourselves there.
Yeah, and now mind you, I'm a fucking pale ass white Irish girl. What the fuck do I know? But I
feel like we're only there because we put ourselves there.
Can't look up to somebody like our little kids need to have a certain person that's a certain color on TV in order to feel normal, and that's just fucked up. That's something that's wrong with media.
Look at the situations the Huxtable family was in. They're the exact same situations that any white family or any Spanish family with with two parents and higher paying jobs would have.
Yeah, that's because the Huxtable family was basically black but white.
Yes,
I mean,
because it was like a skin. It was a different skin color, but the problems were still of the majority of American families which are white.
I would kind of argue that there really wasn't. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think back. And I don't think that there really was a family. I mean, like, you had Family Matters, but they were more like upper middle class. But it wasn't really until Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that, like, like his Uncle Phil was rich, but Will wasn't. Oh, and they portrayed his mother and the poverty that Will came from.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time that I can remember where that kind of came. I don't know how the fuck we got here.
Well, I mean, I feel like
this is what we do, Gina. Come on now.
what I was kind of referring to is like with kids, at least, because I feel like every kid should have a form of representation they can do. I don't think representation is a bad thing when the platform is based on like kids getting what they need. But when representation is shoehorned because it needs to be on an adult level, that's a different story. I feel like I could watch a movie that is 100% black cast, and as long as the movie's good and the storyline's good, I don't give a shit as an adult. I could watch any color of anybody going through a movie. It doesn't really matter to me. But when you have to have X number of a certain race or stuff like that just because their character is that race. Like look at the Ghostbusters movie, the women's Ghostbusters movie.
Oh god, that was shit.
The only reason Leslie Jones was in it because she was
The
a
token black
woman.
person.
Yeah, but like when you say token, you mean 100% token, and that's unfortunate because her character could have been much more than that. And
Absolutely.
to me, that's an insult to the people that they're trying to kind of. They're trying to get people that are of a different color watching a movie, but you don't do that by just shoehorning in. I don't know. You could have a good character. Just make a good character, for fuck's sakes. I don't care what color they are.
This is kind of why like I miss the like shows of the 90s, because you had like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Everybody was watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Fucking Selena. Who didn't love the movie Selena? That was an all Mexican cast, and half of the time they were talking Spanish. And they were talking Spanglish, I should say. Everybody fucking loves Selena's.
I never watched it.
I don't know. Oh my, shut the fuck up. We have to watch Selena. It's amazing. I love that show. But anyways, I don't know how the hell we got here from social media.
Yeah, because movies heavily promote on social media, I guess. No, but to get back to what you were saying there about you didn't know any other show before Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. There was Different Strokes.
Oh, I forgot about Different Strokes.
How dare
Yeah, I
you?
did. Sorry, JP. That was a good show, too, damn it. But, I mean, you know, the whole thing, I think that the social dilemma, even though it was talking about social media, I think the whole thing can just relate to media in general.
It can, because we have
television.
Because we have news programs that are not unbiased.
Yep. Exactly. Or we have, like we were just talking about before, we have to, if we get a movie, we have to make sure that we depict every single diversity. Otherwise, it's not going to be, received well. A TV show, they have to have every single nook and cranny in order to be received okay. And then even still, they have to be either a certain way or sway either left or right.
All I ask
and they better
of media,
whatever it is the right way. I'm sorry.
All I ask of media is to build a character before you build a race or a sexuality or anything like that. I mean, there are characters. Just build I don't give a shit if what color they are or what they are, as long as the character is sound. When you build a character based on race, all you're building is a race-based character, and nobody cares, man. Like, give me a strong character. Make them black, make them Asian, make them white, make them purple. Whatever color they are, at least you're building a strong character. Hey, the problem with media now, it's like, how are we going to shoehorn the lesbians in this one?
Have you guys seen the movie Crash?
I've seen parts of it. I haven't seen all of it.
I have seen it. I'm not a fan of the movie, but...
Okay, it's actually one of my favorite movies. And the reason why it's one of my favorites is not only does it have a really good storyline to it, but it depicts all the different diverse. It does, but you'd actually
I don't know about that. I did. I watched it.
Okay, so I like the storyline, and it makes sense to me because, like, for every character, yes, there's all these different diversities in the movie, but for every character, their story, like their single story, makes for their character. So like they wrote the script kind of for that particular race, but it wasn't for a particular person, and it wasn't directed at solely just one race. It was a whole bunch of different. I mean, they had Latinos, they had an Asian lady in there, they had a black people in there, white people, you name it. And that's one of the things that I love about it, because they actually did diversity right, in my opinion.
I'm all for diversity. I just don't want things shoehorned. I don't want people to be.
You don't want it there for an obvious reason.
I don't want them to be their color or their gender or their sex before they're a character, and that's where media has gone wrong for most things now. Like, they present people as as soon as you present someone as the gay guy, that's their character.
But
their character is they're gay, and it's like, just make them a character, and then out of nowhere on the 7th episode say they're gay. or if
This
you
is-
want to, or don't even allude to it at all. They did
But-
like
but-
how many shows have you watched where the sex like the sexuality of a character is not needed?
That's
And
why.
all of
That's
this-
why. That's why we liked Last of Us so much. We had a feeling Ellie was possibly going to be gay, but it was
Oh, I knew
never
she was
like I
gay,
am
100%.
here and queer.
Right.
Yeah, at times they did lean on it a bit heavy, and I think that's why. Like it's
In part 2, they did a little bit, but
they leaned on it a bit heavy at times, but like it was always enough. Like the storyline and the characters were enough for me to not really give a shit. On a character level, they never really leaned on it. But environmental storytelling, they did lean on it, like running into a gay bookshop and having all these things and stuff like that. Like I mean, I don't care because the characters were interesting. Like you said, the characters were interesting enough that I didn't give a shit if they were gay or not.
have you guys watched the show Schitt's Creek? Okay, first of all, you guys gotta watch the show because it's fucking hilarious. But it's got that the dad from American Pie. What's his name? Eugene.
His son.
But anyways, he's in there. His son in the show is gay, and he's like
He's
super gay. Okay, like
gay in real
I
life,
mean,
too.
he's like
he's super gay,
super
bro.
feminine, I guess you would say. I shouldn't say super gay. That's
Yeah,
politically
he's
correct.
super
But
gay. Is it really incorrect? He's super gay.
anyways,
Like Superman, except you love
they
ass.
work it. But
The
they
rainbow
work it
flies when
into
you
the
fart.
show- But they work it into the show to the point where like it's just who he is. That he's just kind of this flamboyant gay guy. But it's like, so like as the show goes on, you start to like really not even notice it because it's just who he is as a character.
I don't mind a gay character in shows as long as their character is not introduced to me having gay sex, because at that point in time that is their character.
Brokeback Mountain.
Where's the character before the gay? Where's the character before what you're interested in sexually? What are you before? I know you like to have sex with men or women. Where is the character? You don't need to slam my face into the gay sex before I know what the character is. I don't care about. The thing is, yeah, sex sells. Sex sells for teenagers and shit like that. I don't care to see all these. I don't care to see all these characters fucking constantly, unless there's like a
my
reason
God.
for them doing it.
We need to do this one night. God, what was the name of that movie? Cardinal fucking did a live reaction to it. Do you guys remember?
Oh, no.
my God, it was on Netflix.
It's
No,
called Love.
Love.
called Love.
That's it. We need
that's
to
just-
do a
that's just
fucking
porn.
live
That's just
reaction
Netflix
to
porn,
Love.
right?
Yeah, but I didn't record myself, but I turned that on. I want you don't even have to record yourself, Basement. I just want you to watch the first minute of that show because I want to hear your reaction.
I love it. I'm in love
Turned
with
it on and immediately I was like, oh my fucking God. 'Cause it's like immediate.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
there-
I think this whole argument. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say. I think this whole argument ties completely in together. 100%. Because whatever you see on media, you see on social media.
Well, I mean, Hollywood has kind of run with, oh, this is what people are yearning for. They always need to tell. Okay, so for a while there, off and on, Hollywood always needed to tell the plight of mankind, because those are Oscar-winning movies. How many movies that have won an Oscar in the last 25 years have been the plight of mankind, whether it be race relations or all race relations, or now sexuality? Like how many like movies that had to deal with like the acceptance of gays, the acceptance of any race, whatever it may be, the whole Jewish and Germany badness. Like it's so many of those when they go to like a historical point of view with a fantastical story. Those are what wins awards. So they're gonna always keep going back to that well. And they now
Well, and I
like it's like representation. We're on it. We got it. Don't worry. You identify as a stapler. We're gonna make a show about a stapler that loves a hole punch.
Yeah, it's like being completely oversaturated now to the point where it's no longer special. You look at a movie like Schindler's List, and that movie was special because it was one of the very first ones that actually depicted what happened to the Jewish people in Germany.
Who was I talking to about that though? Sorry, I might have been talking to one of you or somebody else about like how the gay culture, like a lot of the idea behind it now is feeling different and feeling special. When you strip that away because it's accepted, then there's a problem that exists there where it's like, if you're gay and people are just like, okay, cool, there is a problem in a culture
There's
that's
no
built
longer
on
feeling special.
yeah, there's a culture built upon rebellion where the rebellion no longer exists.
But I think that can be applied to a lot of things that are happening. Like, I'm not going into any of that because I don't want to go into any of that. But
There's
that
definitely a whole other show.
So, yeah, that can apply to so many different things that are going on in the world today. Not just LGBTQ stuff, but everything.
I had another idea for a show we might do next Saturday. I'll talk to you guys after.
Okay.
But I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys. I don't know how long you want to go, but I don't know like how much. Where do you want to go with this?
Honestly, I'm about wrapped up with the movie. I think that we covered pretty much everything. Do you guys have anything else to add?
No, we pretty much talked over everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked it out, it's worth checking out. I thought the documentary is the compilation of information is good. Even if you had an idea of the way social media has been used, it's good to see like pundits of the industries talk about it and understand exactly how they're trying to exploit people and get them to do certain things. It's an interesting take. I will say that the dramatization is a bit here and there, but I don't know. I watched it and I didn't feel like I should have shut it off at any point in time. Did you guys?
No, I mean it was an interesting documentary. It was just like you guys said, the dramatization probably could have been a little left out, and I would have appreciated a little bit more factual information, like based on facts. But otherwise, it was a really good watch.
But I also feel like it was fun doing something like this. So I'm wondering if this is something we could do in the future. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to only be with documentaries, but I mean, review something, talk about it, have the chat involved. Maybe even get to a point where we take calls about what we're reviewing, especially if it's a hot topic thing, like a movie that's come out that has riled up the masses or something. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
I really like that idea. And I mean, if you guys out there watching this later on, if you guys like that idea, give us a like, leave us a comment so that we know to go forward with this idea. And if you have any ideas for anything for us to talk to, don't be afraid to comment it or find us on Twitter or our Facebook page, The Horny Goat on Facebook and The Horny Goat 1 on Twitter, I believe.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just leave us a like or give us a like, leave us a comment. I want to thank everybody on the show as well as everybody listening to our review and analysis of The Social Dilemma. I hope that you guys enjoyed what was going on. Let's see. We don't have anything going on tomorrow night, I don't think, right?
Nope.
No, we don't.
All right. So Sunday is our day off, but Monday, Canadian Basement will be back with some more gameplay, I believe.
It's going to be a surprise.
Yes, surprise gameplay. And then our week will start from there. Tuesday night is myself, Wednesday night is group stream, Thursday night is Heather, and Friday night is JP. Bob, when are you in Trek uploading your next?
We are recording it this week. It should be Sunday next week.
Okay, sounds good. All right, but anyways, like I said, I hope you guys had a good time with us tonight. Leave us a like, give us a comment, and follow us on Twitter, HornyGoat1. With that being said, bye.
Au revoir. Watch this show.